Carson City Parks and Recreation Commission meeting on Tuesday, February 3rd, beginning at 5:30. We will start with roll call.
Chair Walt,
Here.
Commissioner Fazier, Commissioner Baker Roberts, Commissioner McDermott,
Here.
Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner Moan,
Here.
Commissioner Schutte.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, public comment. Do we have any public comment? When you please come up, please sign your name and press the button to make sure it turns green. Sign and then state your name too, please.
Good evening. My name is Lucia Maloney. I'm here as the president of the Sea Hill Foundation. I know that the Foundation for Carson City Public Works is or Carson City Parks and Recreation is gonna give an update later, but I apologize, I can't stay for the whole meeting. I just wanted to make an update on the Sea Hill Flag project. We are really grateful for the partnership with the Foundation for Carson City Parks and Recreation, as well as the Department of Parks and Recreation staff. Last month, open space staff and the Carson City Fire Department wildland crew went up and widened the trail from the saddle out to the Sea Hill Flag. If you, the weather's been really great. If you have a chance to hike up there, that trail looks incredible. They put in a tremendous amount of work. It was a full day, a lot of brush removal, up to 20 feet around the perimeter of the flag was removed, as well as the trail. So we're just really grateful for staff support on that. And then additionally, for those that maybe are watching at home or here, we've raised over $35,000 for repair of the Sea Hill flag. We're just really grateful to the community. We are looking at a last fundraising push for about $5,000 to complete the repairs. The panels are being produced already, and they're scheduled to be shipped this week. And we're looking just for the remaining funds, which will repair the underneath structure. We have donated labor from Simerson Construction, Bill Miles Construction, and a number of other folks who have helped with the project. So if anyone out there has not donated or are interested in participating, we encourage them to reach out to our website, carsonflagfoundation.com, or the Foundation for Parks and Recreation website, where you can contribute. And then there'll also be a big volunteer push probably in May to repair, to bring back the panels and really put the flag together. So thanks to the community, thanks to you all, and we really appreciate it.
Great. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair and members of the Commission. Leah Cartwright, formerly of the Parks and Recreation Commission. I just wanted to say thank you all for the times we've spent together. I am now caregiver for my grandma. She's 82. She's blind and diabetic, and she is just a hoot and a half. So I will be heading out pretty quickly to go and take care of her right after this. As Lucia just mentioned, I have thoroughly enjoyed how creative this entire community is in funding our parks and recreation, when the private sector, the public sector, the nonprofit sectors all come together to fund all of these things that are so important to our community. I can't think of any other place where that really happens, and Carson City really, we just make it happen. And I am truly grateful for all of the time we spent together, and I am sorry I was not here for a variety of meetings. My apologies there. There are just lots of family things getting in the way, but I have really enjoyed my time on Parks and Rec, and I can't wait to come back and testify as a member of the public and keep you updated on all the happenings in Riley Park Circle, which is my local park, and also Mills Park, which is in my ward. So thank you all.
Great. Thank you. Any additional public comment? Go ahead. Please make sure to sign in.
Hi, Dave Whitefield, also former commissioner. That's a pretty tough act to follow there, but I'm also very thankful for all the help that all the commissioners have given me while I was on the commission, and we had a lot of public support for what we were doing, and I think we accomplished a lot of good things while I was on the commission. I know you guys are probably tired of hearing about the pickleball, so you'll have a respite for a while, but I'm sure I'll be back to talk about pickleball sooner or later. Also want to express my gratitude to the engine behind a lot of the things that I do, and that's my wife, Juana Beglin, who's here. She keeps me on the move, and most of the good ideas I have really came from her. So, but I like taking the credit. So, true. Director Budge has been just terrific. I think she's a real asset to our community. I'm very thankful that we have her and the staff. Dan, Dan Harp. I want to mention too, Nick Wentworth has done just a phenomenal job on these new courts. He was very good about listening to what the pickleball community wanted. And we got, this is hard to believe, hard for me to believe, we got everything we asked for. It's just an amazing facility. And we hear this every time we play there. The people that come from out of town or from Reno or from Gardnerville, they say, man, this is really sweet. And it is. It's really nice. And some of you play, so you know, Lisa and Molly. Also, give you somebody to blame. Scott Chapman is the one that got me into this mess. When an opening appeared a few years back, I didn't even know the commission existed. And Scott accosted me at pickleball one day and said, hey, we haven't had somebody on the commission in a while that represented recreation. He said, I think you'd be good at it. And I said, I don't know what this is about. And he said, well, go check into it. And anyway, he talked me into applying, and the Board of Supervisors made the mistake of it, letting me on, and I have really enjoyed it. This is not something that I would have normally done, and it's been a lot of personal growth for me, and I appreciate everything that has happened since I was a part of it, and I hope I'll be welcome back. Anyway, thank you very much.
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada, Chair and Commissioners. I've been away. It's given me a chance to regroup in many different ways. One of them is how to approach tonight's meeting. I'm meeting 2 new chair commissioners, and I am wanting you to understand my appreciation, while it might not be always my agreement with your being here. So right off the bat, I want you to know that. And I would like to repeat a little bit using information that the chair, Walt, had given me while we weren't in the best of positions. I did find out that the associations, the sports association, and if I'm wrong, you can deal with that in a minute. But the deal is that you all are aware of the special circumstances brought into this community, as has artificial turf entered the playground areas that our children are on. My concerns were not agreed upon as your concerns at the time, and they are now present. My wish is, if nothing else from what I've brought up, that you all will do research on the newest findings and the newest suggestions by the manufacturers as to how to post, how to communicate with the community, the differences between a regular grass field and now the artificial turf. And what the manufacturers are suggesting are uniformed, if you can come up with one for the city, stating the conditions of the off gases, the materials used, and the importance of watching temperature. And not only that, but that you have an assigned individual at each event that will be monitoring, that is assigned to monitor heat, and then the regulation of the cannons for the water used for cooling. And the time for that, children don't show their heat the same way we do. They're not like dogs, they don't pant, but they do a whole different system. We need to be alert to that. Size matters. Closer to the field, closer to the issue. Most of the children's accidents and such are head and upper body. Adults have more lower body injuries. But the thing is, for me, is to encourage you all to come up with, and I've talked to Commissioner Schutte about things, but I never got her any kind of condensed deal. But there were examples of what cities have to come up with and how they're posting. And I really would appreciate it if you all look into that now that artificial turf is here. I've consigned myself to understanding that, but I also have a heat deal, and if I find anything going over 120 on that field, I'll be blowing a whistle to stop it. And I don't think I should be in that position, so I'm hoping that all the association members advise all their team parents and all of the staff on the fields. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much, Danny. All right.
Hi, my name is Dennis Peterson. I'm here representing the disc golf community. And I just thought, to start out, I'd just like to state some facts about disc golf in Carson City, in the state, and in the world, actually. Of the 42 courses listed in our state, Carson City consistently ranks number 1 or 2. Zephyr Cove is usually our competitor for that number 1 or number 2 spot. There's over 11,000 disc golf courses in the United States. Estimated there's 10 to 12 million players in over 40 countries, with 5 to 7 million in the United States. Growth, there's over 1,000 new courses are installed annually with significant international growth and projected 15 to 20% year-to-year increase in participation. And we've seen it out here. I mean, it's amazing to see over the past few years how the participation has increased. And a lot of families, I've really been surprised at how many families have been playing out there. Carson City, of course, remains popular with all ages. A lot of families, beginners love the 9-hole pony course, if anybody's played that, and as well as the over 60 crowd. A lot of our neighbors from Reno and Tahoe frequent our course, especially this time of year, because of Tahoe, there's no place to play. So we see a lot of people coming down from the lake. And we see a lot of people, sometimes people are out there asking questions about where's the course, how does it work? And a lot of people just passing through, they use a called UDisc, and they'll see Carson City ranked number 1 in the state, and they make a special trip to play the Carson City course. You know, to remain attractive as a destination and to keep up with the growth of the sport, we need to make investments and improvements on our course. And right now, I think we need a shade structure and a permanent restroom. We appreciate your support. We appreciate the park staff has been great to work with, and thank you.
Hi, Greg Swift. I am a board member for the Foundation for Carson City Parks and Recreation, but I'm speaking tonight as a disc golf advocate also. Dennis probably said a lot of the same things that I'll be reiterating, but under the foundation umbrella, there's a lot of great projects. One of them is disc golf, so we're hoping you keep us in mind. There's been a lot of good stuff going on out there too that I just wanted to bring up a couple things. There is going to be a work day coordinated by Aaron Larson, the volunteer coordinator, who's been great working together with us on March 21st. Also, we have new flags out on all the baskets. And that, Dennis won't say too much, but he's been the driving force and actually sewed most of those flags. So, and we have a retired carpenter also that's done some wood signs that take our course to the next level. That's why it's so popular. As Dennis said, we're like the second ranked in the state. We were first 2023, and they haven't come out this year, but that's kind of a different subject. The main thing for me as a retired person, the entire city has so many great projects going on, and it's the driving forces like the pickleball people and the flag. And I do want to thank Dave and Leah for stepping up and doing commissioner work, because you guys are appreciated, and I don't think you know how much the community does appreciate it. Outdoor recreation's top notch in Carson City, and it starts from the top. Parks and Rec does works with all these great projects. And we're hoping you guys realize, yeah, we need to keep moving on Carson Ridge. Got some new projects going on, so hopefully keep us in mind on the budget process, because people traveling from all over the country, when they see that a facility is well-run and has good infrastructure, it's important. Thanks for all you guys do.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. All right, any additional public comment? All right, we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item number 4, and this is for possible action, approval of the minutes. Those of you who were in attendance of the December 2nd, did you get a chance to review the minutes for the joint meeting of the Parks and Rec Commission and the Open Space Advisory Committee? If so, do I have a motion to approve? I'll move to second? All right, motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item number 5, meeting items. This is for discussion only. This will be presented by Jennifer Budge, the recognition and acknowledgement of our outgoing Parks and Rec Commission Commissioners Dave Whitefield and Leah Cartwright. Jennifer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just want to say that this is one of the best advisory boards. This is a group of caring advocates for Parks and Recreation. You give up your time. You give up time away from your family to be here, and especially in the nights. But Leah and Dave in particular are just tremendous people. They are so passionate about what we do and why we do it, and they're supportive of our staff. And I really can't thank you both so much. It's been such a pleasure to have you. I'm really sad to see you guys leave, but don't go anywhere, because I'm sure there's a lot of things that, we have to look forward in the future. We'll have a separate in the spring when we do a big to-do at the pickleball courts it feels like spring now, but we'll do something a little more official. So I have another surprise for Dave that'll have to wait for then. But I just wanted to take a moment to thank you for your time and caring so much and being so supportive of our staff. And I have a couple little parting gifts for you guys to take with you. And I just wanted you to know how much we appreciate all that you've done for us.
Before you go ahead and do that, do we have any comments from the board or for the commission that you would like to comment?
I'll just say it was great work. It was great working with you guys. Hope to see you out there.
We'll be at the parks or the pickleball court.
I would also like to thank you both for your time, your support on the Parks and Rec. It can be a thankless job. You're giving up an evening, every other month, but your dedication and I think your commitment to this community speaks volumes. And so I appreciate that, and I really hope that you do attend future meetings because you both brought different insights on different agenda items. And I think that was valued, and it was extremely valuable, and so I really hope that you pay attention to what's on the agenda and that you do come back and speak in public comment. I really value both of your opinions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I really appreciated learning a lot about pickleball every week. I saw that the Dinks and Drinks registration opened, so that's good. And Leah, learning about your kids in the Aqua and all the resources that they have available, I think opened a lot of eyes to younger parents, and that's an invaluable resource. So sad to see you go, but excited to see you guys in public comment.
And I'm going to build on everything that has already been said. Leah, your passion for our community and our kiddos, for Mills Park, for safety, it is truly appreciated. And thank you for really just sharing that love and commitment for this community. And Dave, absolutely, your joy. And both of you, the time that you put into our community to benefit, a sport you love and the people who love to play that sport. It is a big lift, and please know that you're appreciated.
Okay.
I gotta get some funding for the pool.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you, guys.
I was remiss, I'm going to take just a second to welcome the new commissioners, because I meant to do that and I didn't. I think it's a, can I? It's a blessing that we have people that are willing to come do this. And I really appreciate that you guys stepped up. And I think it was time for some new ideas, fresh ideas, different perspectives. And I think that's really good. And I know if you enjoy your time on the commission as much as I did, you're in for a real treat. This is a great, Director Budge has a great staff to work with. And we've gotten great cooperation from the city manager, from the mayor. Mayor Bagwell's been a great supporter of everything we've done. And it's just gonna, I think you're gonna have a lot of fun on doing this. So I wish you good luck, and we'll try to come back when I have something worth saying. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 5B. This is for discussion only. This will be welcoming our new and introducing our new Parks and Rec commissioners. Jennifer?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I just wanted to take a minute to welcome our new commissioners. We took them on a tour last week, which was wonderful. Gave them a little Parks and Rec 101, and we're throwing them into the deep end of the pool, I think, with fees and budgets on the first night. But they're really talented and amazing people that I think will be a benefit to that. And I thought maybe if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourselves real briefly, if you don't mind.
Sure, not at all. Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Jana Moan, and I've lived in Carson City for 2 years, but have traveled to Carson City for many years before that, working at the legislature or during the session as an advocate for nature, actually. So in my professional life, I am an external affairs director for the Nature Conservancy in Nevada. I've held that position for about 7 years. And when I moved here 2 years ago, my husband got a job with NDEP. He actually has worked for NDEP for a long time, but he got a different job at NDEP, and it was in Carson City. And the first thing that I said when he asked me if I would move up here was, absolutely, have you been to Pleasant Hill? So I love I think Carson City's amazing in terms of its outdoor recreation opportunities. And now that I have started going to the aquatic center on a regular basis, I just think it is one of my favorite parts of my day when I go there. And I think recreation and the amenities that Carson City has to offer are truly incredible. And I'm honored to be serving on this commission with all of you. And thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be here.
Good evening, Jim Fazer. Thank you for having me here tonight, and thank you to the Board of Supervisors for the appointment. I've been working in and around Carson City for probably 25 years now in the development world. Some time spent at the legislature, working as their facilities director, and now the facilities director for Western Nevada College. So in my spare time, when I'm not working, I'm usually down at Governor's Field this time of year as the current president, starting my third term as president of Carson City Little League. So very active with that. It's pretty much my full-time job. I don't want to put that on the record for WNC to hear, but I may spend more time with Little League than I do at the college. But yeah, I'm become pretty passionate with youth sports in the community. I've got 3 kids that participate in a lot of activities, both Little League and other city activities. So just want to make sure that our community is providing a good atmosphere for the youth in our community, somewhere they can kind of go escape for a while and just have fun, go enjoy themselves, and learn how to play sports. So pleasure to be here. I'm looking forward to getting some things done. So thank you.
Somebody left a phone up here. Did you grab that? Okay, all right. So pass it down. I just wanted to make sure it didn't start ringing and, yeah. All right, well, thank you guys and welcome. Welcome to the commission. I think you will enjoy it. And, okay, thank you. All right, moving on to 5C. This is for possible action. This is discussion and possible action regarding the election of a chair and a vice chair of the Parks and Rec Commission for 2026 calendar year. At this time, we will open it for nominations, and I will, I've enjoyed my time as chair, and I'm ready to move on. So at this time, I would like to nominate, you go by Jacob or Jake? Okay. Okay, so yes, at this time then, I will nominate then Jacob McDermott. Do you accept the nomination?
I do.
Okay, at this time, is there any other nominations for chair? None? Okay. So we'll go with both chair and vice chair in one vote. So do I have a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Lisa Schutte for vice chair of the Park and Rec Commission.
Do you accept the nomination? Okay, do we have a nomination off the floor? No? Okay, seeing that then, do I have a motion for chair and vice chair? Can I read it?
Do you want to read it?
Sure. I move to nominate Jake McDermott for chair, Lisa Schutte for vice chair of the Parks and Rec Commission for the calendar year of 2026.
Second.
Hearing a second, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously, and I will then now hand the gavel over to Jake to run the rest of the meeting. Thank you and congratulations.
The power. Thank you. Well, this will be fun. You're gonna have to excuse me while I figure out the training wheels and work all this out. I'm sure we'll all have a lot of guidance from over in corner, but I'm excited for the opportunity to take up the chair, and I know with Lisa's experience, and I know we'll continue to just thrive. So, I guess that puts us at 5D, which is for possible action, the discussion and possible action regarding a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors concerning proposed updates to the Parks and Recreation and Open Space Department fees and charges policy. And that goes to Jen and Dan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I apologize for not being at your last meeting, but I did watch it so I could get all of your feedback. And Dan and I have been working on incorporating all of your feedback and your comments into updating the policy. If you don't mind, what I'd like to do is talk about the policy portion first, and then get through any questions or additional changes that you would like to see made to the policy. And then we'll move on to the fee schedule if that works for you guys. Does that work okay? So I wanted to highlight a few things in the policy just so you're aware of the changes and the comments that you made to make sure that they got in there properly. I gave you a red line copy, which is a lot of red. And then you also have a clean copy, so you can hopefully read that a little bit easier. But to go through the changes that you requested, we clarified the booking deposit definition, which is on page 2. Stop me at any time if you have questions or you don't like how we changed it or you think we need additional edits. clarifying the booking deposit was on page 2 of the policy. If you don't mind, can I go through my list and then I think we can make sure we get everybody's items unless that specific thing maybe is a concern? Supervisor Schutte?
I'm happy to wait for you to go through everything,
Okay.
but I do have a question
On that one,
on
okay.
that.
Well, maybe we'll do that. I'll go through my list and then if that works for everybody. We clarified resident on page 4, living within the geographic boundary of Carson City. So to be clear, this is not Washoe Valley residents, not Indian Hills, and not Dayton. So if you have a Carson City address, it might say Carson City, Nevada, but you actually have to live within the geographic boundary. One other suggestion, if this definition doesn't suffice, we talked about perhaps adding a map in the policy to clarify what the geographic boundaries are, if that's something that you would like us to do. Then 3.3.1, prioritization for scheduling. We have public, and then we added 2 as agreements. Commissioner Walt brought up concern about Carson City School District, so they're the number 2 priority. And then other agreements similar, like our joint use agreement with the Carson City School District, making sure that, you know, the youth are a priority for booking in our facilities. This is a good problem. We have, our facilities are so popular that we have to have, you know, a hierarchy before we can make reservations. So that I see this as a good thing. 3.8, cancellation clarifications. 4.5.1, clarification regarding non-resident fees and priorities for Carson City residents. So not just having non-resident fees, but offering other special opportunities specifically for residents, and catering to that community. And then 4.1.8, gate fees and ticketing, clarification to ensure that public access and free events, you know, remain that way. And we don't have event organizers trying to have gate fees where it's supposed to be a free event to the public. So those were the things that I took from the Parks and Rec Commission meeting in December. And we've incorporated all of your comments into the policy. So I guess now we could just move on to any questions that you might have on the policy and if you'd like additional edits.
Start down there. Diane.
So, under direct costs, under definitions, these costs can be directly exclusive and attributed to or assigned to a specific program or event. Would we want to also put facility in there? Because I know that there's a lot of budgets that are noted to a facility, and some of those direct costs are derived from facility direct costs. Is that what you're going for there? And do you like that?
Yep.
Okay, great. Under scholarship, I know that in the past, working in recreation for as long as I did, we did payments for participants. We also did a lot of partial payments, and those partial payments were to get buy-in from the individual or the parent that's using that thing. So is partial payment part of that definition applicable in that area? So it would say scholarship payment or partial payment for participation of activity based on established criteria? Or am I getting into the weeds?
I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you. And the other one that kind of struck me, and you can, it struck me in a way that it shouldn't have, but under 3.6, the department will remain competitive with other parks and recreation services and providers in the region. I see that statement as, hey, we need to keep up with people's fees and charges all the way around us. I mean, I don't mind if we're looking at what they are charging or what they aren't charging and hopefully staying right there or underneath. But competitive seems to me like it's saying we want to keep clicking up instead of making these fee adjustments because we need to make these fee adjustments. Is that clear? Danny thinks it's clear.
Would you prefer a different word like consistent or?
I don't know why it needs to be there at all. I mean, I know that when I was in the, we used those as gauges, and we saw that as, hey, what does Douglas do? What does Reno do? And we had those different surveys, and anytime we wanted to do something, we could have a defense. Well, this is how much it costs to play golf. This is how much it costs to play this or that. Likewise things. It just didn't seem to me like we needed to stay competitive. I guess what were we trying to say there, Dan? Maybe Jen.
It's pretty old. We had that in there. We can strike the first sentence. I have no concern about that. What you're referring to is the market analysis, and we've done that.
Yeah,
we
market-
always look
exactly.
at, we always refer to what other people are doing.
And that'd be a market analysis. It wouldn't be competitive. I could see that as,
Yes.
selling jeans or gasoline. So
Sure. We could strike that first
All right.
sentence if that's agreeable
that's
to
all
everybody.
I had on the policy. Thank you.
Mhm.
Diana, do you want to, I'm taking Jacob's job. Are you ready?
Mine are on the fees, so.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. So, got a couple of items that just, unfortunately, wasn't at the last meeting, so just kind of looking at this for the first time. But under 3.8 cancellations, got me thinking about, is there somewhere that exists in this policy that provides a user with deadlines for when all of their material needs to be submitted to the department for review and application, their certificate of insurance, anything else that you're looking for? Does that live in this document, or does that live somewhere else? Because I think that would be important to make sure you're hitting certain milestones. If the DA's office needs to review something, or another entity, risk management, looking at the insurance coverages. I was just curious if that was something that needed to be in this document, or it is and I missed it.
That would be a difficult thing to include because insurance companies can be difficult. A lot of times you won't get a certificate of insurance until the day before an event. So to require it so many days in advance with so many different rules and different companies, I think it would maybe punish event organizers. Our reservation coordinator, April Livesay, she's on it, I will say. And but it's really about the fees being paid on time, and then that's what you'll get back. If they don't have their insurance, we don't let them have their event, but it varies because if it's something that's very low risk, as you'll see in the policy, if I'm going to rent the Bonanza room for, say, a small meeting, it doesn't require insurance. It doesn't require all the other things that maybe a large scale special event might have. So I appreciate what you're saying, but I don't want to pigeonhole everybody into something that might vary so much.
Yeah, and you might not be running up against this now. I'm thinking of other kind of user agreements that I've dealt with in the past where we try and at least set some sort of deadline so you're not
Yeah.
scrambling at the end to, this is more about, protecting the department as far as not scrambling at the last second, trying to verify
Absolutely.
documents to make sure an event has got the green light. So that was the
We
purpose of
do
my
have
comment.
some deadlines for things like endorsed events for Culture and Tourism Authority. Those are actually in that CTA agreement, though, so they're spelled out with that. A lot of our use agreements might spell those out separately. It's something we can look at. If you have some suggestions for language that you would like to see, I'd be happy to consider that. Dan might have some comments as well.
Dan Art for the record. And just kind of add, and it's along what Jen's already saying, that we do have a reservations coordinator. So with the process, it does get communicated. It's just not in the fee policy because it's hard to pin everything down. But our reservations coordinator, in order to make a reservation, they'll contact her. She'll make a permit once things get booked. And when she sends that permit out, she's as Jen said, she's very thorough. So she's really good at communicating all the expectations, like we need to have insurance, we need to have these things. She goes over the cancellation policy, so they're very clear on what the expectations are there. So it is all communicated to the renters at the time of booking or at the time of their permit being generated. And they do get a permit that has a breakdown of all that as well. So I don't know if that's sufficient for what you're thinking of, but it does, I just want to make sure it's clear that it does get communicated to the renter.
Yeah, just more thinking, don't want the department to be in a bind for, you know, a couple hours before an event and you're saying, well, sorry, we don't have your COI. You can't hold your event that you've invested time and money in. So if it's not been an issue, then you know, maybe you've got all the checks and balances in place. I'm just you know, bringing it up from my experience from other use agreements that I've done in the past. And then do you have the insurance rates published somewhere? Are we see a time that somebody says, hey, I want to do this event, you know, they're provided all those, you know, appropriate rates at that time?
They don't purchase insurance from us, but they'll give us a certificate of insurance acceptable to the risk manager. And the city will be an added insured on that, depending on the activity or the event. So the thresholds for the insurance requirements is basically determined by our risk manager and our insurance broker based on the type of event. So if it's something complicated, like a big, large-scale special event, like, for example, we've got the Carson City Lights activity. They're building their temporary structure right now. So they come to us, we work with the insurance broker to make sure that the insurance covers all the right things and that there's no exclusions on those policies based on that activity or event. So we won't list a minimum or a maximum in the policy because that will fluctuate based on the activity, if that helps.
But you're working with each user on a case-by-case basis and determining what those
Have
levels
some
are.
basic standards, and then there's some language in here about it falls on the risk manager and then sometimes the DA's office to review and approve those, especially if they're a complicated event.
And then on section 4.8, you reference CTA endorsements. I mean, I know what that is, but other users might not know what that is. I was just curious if that maybe CTA endorsement or CTA maybe should be in the definitions section so it's clear what CTA is.
Can I ask actually what that acronym stands for? Because that was one of my
Sure.
questions.
It's
too.
the Culture and Tourism Authority.
Okay.
Or Visit Carson City.
Question.
And Carson City has an agreement with the Culture and Tourism Authority to help bring in tournaments and to the community. So what they get is, it's a separate agreement than this policy, but it's just referring to that, is an event organizer will come to town. They don't have to pay rental fees because they're bringing in participants into the community that will spend and purchase food and room nights and things like that. So we'll provide certain support for those events, and then we can bill back a fund to recover our costs if we need to. So it's a good partnership that we have.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so when you go to the geographic boundaries, a thought would be zip codes. And why wouldn't that work?
We had a staff person check into this, so he's our local expert right now.
John Costello, Senior Park Ranger for the record. When I was going through the range fees and range passes, we had to determine what is considered a Carson City resident versus non-Carson City resident. So I believe there's 5 zip codes. I don't have it right in front of me. But like 89705 would be Indian Hills area. Yeah, and I think 89701, 89703, 89706, and maybe 89702 was PO boxes because there's like a small postage stamp where the post office is, that's its own zip code. So I have all of those. I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I could get all of that information to you.
Well, my question is, wouldn't it be easier than geographic boundaries to say just specific zip codes? You know, the 89701, 3, and 6.
I think my only concern as Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director, is if that changes, then it dates our policy. If we always use the geographic boundary, I mean, that's approved. We could say at the time of the policy, these are the zip codes. I think it'd be a good guide for staff if they're trying to determine if someone is a resident or not.
So, but when you say geographic boundaries, then will you what are those? I mean, is it just going to be Carson City?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
so
you
Carson
will
City is a
include a map?
city, is
Right,
consolidated, it's a
municipal.
city and a
Mhm.
county. So it's the county boundaries,
Okay,
yes.
okay. I just wanted to ensure.
So that's why I thought too, if we want us to include a map, we're
Yeah.
happy to do that. So it's very clear as to what constitute a Carson City resident.
Yeah, I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
For those as well. That would be great. Thanks. And then I did have a question. Let's see. For the facilities for the nonprofit discounts, is that then just the two? The Carson City Rifle and Pistol Range and the theater? Those are the only two facilities that would get the nonprofit discount?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a reason for that? That you wouldn't do all parks facilities?
It was a can of worms, and that was actually something that the Board of Supervisors had directed when we first approved this policy. So if you're suggesting something different, I think we could entertain it and bring it to the board, but they had some strong feelings about it. Because if we open discounts for every facility, then we're really gonna struggle with our cost recovery even more.
Okay. All
So
right.
I worry that that might have a cascading effect.
Okay.
It is also limited, so it's only for reservations at the Rifle and Pistol Range, and then, for certain activities at the theater. So it's pretty limited.
Okay. No, and cost recovery I think is extremely important as well. So no, that I just questioned, but, and then for the, can you explain a little bit more about the gate fees and ticketing? Because I see, with the gate fee of somebody, and let's just go with All World Sports, when they were reserving, so say that if they were to do that out at Centennial Upper, and then, but yet they have the play structure, and we're saying that they can't charge for someone to go into the play structure, how would they monitor that then? I mean, that I think would be very problematic. Because a parent's going to say, well, I have to accompany my child to go into the play structure, but yet they could be an aunt and uncle watching a child. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. So Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent, for the record. Previous to this edit of the fee policy, our policy was that we just didn't allow gate fees at all. So for the past 5-6 years, we haven't allowed gate fees. And that posed a couple complaints that we got from some user groups, particularly ones who weren't endorsed and were paying full price for the facilities, wanted to be able to recoup part of their fees for renting the facility. So we wanted to try and address that and figure out a way to do that. But at the same time, one of the concerns that we had is making sure that didn't restrict access to public amenities such as playgrounds. And so this was the kind of the compromise that we came up with after talking to some other agencies and how their policies were. So basically, if a user group is paying full rental fees, they're allowed to charge gate fees at Centennial. So you mentioned All World Sports, for example. So they could charge gate fees. But because the playground is right in the middle of Centennial, there's a bit of an honor code thing going on as far as people could definitely take advantage if they say, oh, we're here for the playground. The agencies that we talked to that have implemented that kind of a practice, maybe occasionally there is somebody who takes advantage of that. But for the most part, it wasn't mainstream, wasn't like everybody entering in. We're coming in like dressed in baseball gear saying they want to use the playground. So it is something that we're going to ask those user groups to be able to enforce, that if somebody's saying they want to use a public amenity there, that they need to allow them to do that, because we don't want to restrict them or have someone feel like they have to pay to go and use the playground at Centennial.
Well, I just don't see that those facilities are open to the general public during the day, are they? Is Centennial open during the day just for somebody to go out there and use the play structure?
It is not.
Right, so if they're renting it, and if it's not open, I mean, could we not restrict, put a few different, saying that this does not, fit within like Centennial or Edmonds? Well, I guess Edmonds would be open during the day for the
mean,
playground structure. I'm
Right now,
just-
you can walk in, I mean, even though in the winter, the sports fields are closed, so like at Pete Livermore Sports Complex or at Governor's Field, you can still park your car and walk in and use the playground. And if someone wants to come use the playground or some other
Right.
public amenity during an event, they're not using that amenity, they didn't really rent or reserve that, we should make that available to people. So most of the event organizers, I don't really see it being a problem.
Okay.
Everybody's usually pretty great. And we'll hear about it if someone wasn't allowed to play in the playground, I'll tell you. I mean, we'll get the phone calls. So we'll know if an event organizer was maybe not being cooperative with that.
Mhm. Mm. All right.
Is there other wording or suggestions that
No,
you
I
would like to
just-
see?
I do. Oh, yeah, it's 4.8 on page 27. I just see that when the event organizer is out there and they rented the entire facility, it is they're obligated for whether it be the trash pickup or anything that's going on, right? And what happens then if they do get some participants that aren't part of their rental for the usage and that are being obstructed? Then what right do they have then? Because they're there as a public. And I'm just going to let you know that, I mean, this does happen when you have tournaments and you have those who have nothing to do with the tournament, but yet they see a lot of people, they're on their bikes, whatever, they're going to go out and maybe be disruptive. And how fair is that to the person who's renting the facility? What rights do they have? Because they did rent the whole facility and they're paying for it.
For the most part, I think it's very dependent by venue, first of all. I think it's, if you're thinking about Centennial, obviously, I think that's a little bit easier to maybe control. But Pete Livermore, not so much. You have so many different venues within there. If you're going to charge a gate fee, you have to be careful where you would want to do it. Because if you're going to the BMX track, if you're going to the ball fields, if you're going to soccer, there's a million different things going on, or going to the playground. When someone's renting a facility, you're talking about exclusive use, I guess I would call it. I think it depends on the event and the tournament and what you're trying to do to try to make sure that they can do that. We can't really police that. If there's an issue with someone being disruptive, they can call non-emergency dispatch. Maybe they send a ranger out. Maybe they send a deputy, and that's how it would be resolved if it's that example. But I think it's going to be very dependent. The big thing with the ticketing is, and I think this is a comment from the Board of Supervisors, we don't want to prohibit the public from using and enjoying their facilities. So it's trying to find a compromise between that exclusive use and being able to access the playground with your child during a tournament.
I don't want to imply that I don't agree with that. It's just and I am specifically speaking about Centennial, it's closed during the day. So when somebody is renting it, they open it. It's open because of their rental. It wouldn't be open to the public if it wasn't being rented by that third party. Do you see what I'm saying? So it would be exclusive to Centennial during the time of their rental because it isn't open to the public on any given day.
The public wouldn't be trespassing if they were on the field, like playing catch or.
What I'm saying is what would bring the public out there if they weren't participating in that event that is out there in Centennial? Why would they need to be there?
Unless there's an area within Centennial that isn't being used for the event. I know it's.
Right.
Um,
But it's closed. Normally, it would be the event that opens it.
In the winter.
Dave Navarro, let's see for the record. This is Dave Navarro, Park Operations Superintendent. I just want to clarify, we hear that Centennial is like closed. And that's the one like facility that has a playground in it that we can close off. But however, like when we do have staff out there and they have the facility open doing work, then it is open like to the public. Like we're not kicking people out if they're going to use like the playground. Obviously, depending on the time of year, right now from about March until October, like November, when we have recreation, like play out there and have tournaments, like our staff's out there 5 days a week in the morning, and the facilities open at that time, and then people are always coming up and always using the playground. So it's not closed all the time, but that's probably an area that is out of all the sports complexes with the playground that is more like controlled and more restricted. Absolutely, but it's not. I just want to clarify, it's not closed all the time. So.
I was just going to add as well too, so Dan Art for the record, that like when we think of Centennial right now, there's not a lot of amenities out there other than the playground. But if you look, a few months ago, we passed we just developed a master plan for Centennial Park, and there's more things that in time, when funding becomes available, are going to become available, such as a bike park. And so there's going to be more public amenities. And I guess we're just trying to make it clear to the renters that we don't want the public who are there for other things. They could be there for the bike park and maybe they need to use the restrooms. Or maybe they have kids at the bike park, but they want to take their younger sibling or parent takes to the playground. So we just want to make it clear our expectations are that we want those public amenities to be available for the public. And we might see more of that as years come by, more public amenities become available at Centennial or at other parks.
All right, on page 2, the booking deposit, my question is, does any of the money, that booking deposit, get returned, or is it applied to the general fee?
Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent for the record. So yes, we changed the wording on there because it did say, before it said refundable. And basically I got some clarification on our practices on that, but as long as the event happens and there's no damage or anything like that, that we would retain that, then they get that deposit back.
I think we need to add some wording because it reads as if this is in addition to the fee. And maybe it doesn't to everyone else, and so if it doesn't, okay. On 3.6, just to revisit the competitive comment, I read competitive as in we will kind of remain lower priced, so I got a different take from it. But the word when, I mean, if that first sentence did stay, and I'm comfortable with it being removed, but if it did stay, we could say if instead of when. So if fees are increased or anticipated to increase, the department will engage in a public outreach. So that was just a suggestion. On the cancellation fees, I also had, the deadline about materials being needed, so I had had a question on that. The 90-day, so cancellation requests received less than 90 days in advance will receive a refund of the reservation fee, but the full amount of the booking deposit will be retained. 90 days seems like quite a long time for the full amount of the booking deposit. And I understand that by somebody booking, you are in essence taking that off the calendar for other people. So I understand that you do want some, lead time. But I was wondering if perhaps after, if it's after 45 days or something, and then if there's a way to reduce the period of time so that that booking deposit could be returned, or at least partial, after 90 days, partial return. So I'm just curious on your thoughts.
Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent. So this was drafted after talking to staff, and obviously we have a lot of different events in a lot of different areas, and trying to come up with a practice that more or less works well generally with the kind of different events that we have. The 90 days was developed as a period of time in which, particularly here, like with the theater or at Mills Park with some of the bigger events that we have, but particularly the theater is what we had in mind, that if there was a cancellation, that with 90 days, we probably have time to be able to reschedule, get another event in that time. But once you get in that 90-day window, it would be difficult for us to be able to find something else and get something to replace that loss that we had. So any shorter period of time would make that probably difficult. Another suggestion you had, and we do see this in other agencies where you do have kind of a tiered, at 90 days full refund, 45 days partial refund. And we're definitely open to that if that's the will of the commission. But our staff really didn't want to do that. If they didn't, wanted to try and keep it as simple as possible, was kind of the recommendation to us. And so that's how we wrote it in here, to try and just keep it as a basically 90 days and earlier, then you get a full refund. Once you're in that, then we're going to retain that booking deposit, rather than have, keep track of, well, okay, if it's, between 90 and 45 and between 45 and 30 and having different percentages back depending on that.
No, that it makes sense. It just seems 90 days is quite a long time, and I absolutely agree. And it is incredibly important that if somebody is booking a facility, that they're mindful of other users who couldn't book it because it's already reserved. So I understand that this is a way to kind of make sure that folks book things and take it seriously when they book.
And it's not, I mean, I was hoping, my original goal was to try and come up with a cancellation policy that would fit for all event rentals, and we just couldn't. We have too many different uses, and so the 90 days is really for like our major events, big things like State Fair at Mills Park, or like I said, theater events, things that we book usually year out.
Okay. So in that context, 90 days isn't a long time at all. It's very short. Okay.
And while like for sport events and tournaments, we felt 90 days was too long because they usually don't know how many teams they have, and so that's why we gave them a different time frame. So they're not constrained to the 90 days.
Okay. Yeah, and I read that.
They're
the
30 days.
Right. Okay.
And then the rifle range is 8 days because they're smaller events. And so we try to come up with something. Universal doesn't work, so we came up with something for different areas, and we can make adjustments to that. But the 90 days is really only applying to like the big events that we host.
Okay, then maybe that's the clarification. That could be helpful. Then 4.5.1, I'm just giving you an attaboy on that. I love how that reads. So, and that concludes my statements.
Hi, Jana Moan. Well, first, I'll just say I really appreciated the thoughtful revisions that the staff put together. So I thought that was reading the whole document. I think a lot of thought and thinking went into it, and you can tell. So thank you for that. I do have a couple of different questions, starting with the administrative fee. Is that a new fee?
Dan Art for the record. It's not a new fee. We're just, we might have just changed the name of it to kind of clarify because there's some confusion at the last meeting between our booking fees and admin fees. And so we were just trying to make that clear. But generally, anytime we do any sort of a refund or anything, we do charge a 10% admin fee anyway, or processing fees, what we often were calling it as well, because that is what our registration software charges us. So we're usually passing that on to the user if they canceled on us.
Yeah, Yeah, I think it definitely makes sense. And then I have also a couple of questions about the booking deposit. Um, so the definition of the booking deposit looks like an additional sentence, the cleaning and security fees are included in the booking deposit. And then looking at that vis-a-vis, 3.8.2, when you're looking at the cancellation fees, if I was somebody who had to pay, like didn't receive the booking deposit yet, and I didn't hold the event, and it includes cleaning and security fees, I'm just curious if, like, why should a person have to pay if they cancel their event for cleaning and security fees if they weren't incurred?
So Dan, for the record, basically what the intent of that sentence was is oftentimes in rentals you hear booking deposit fees or you hear about cleaning fees or cleaning deposit or security deposits. We're basically saying there's one deposit and we're including all uses for that. So if you make when you book with us, you pay your booking deposit and we're going to hold on to that until we know that the event's over and that you didn't cause any damage. So we're using it as a cleaning security deposit as well. It's just an all-inclusive deposit that you pay with us. If the event goes smoothly and there's no damage or cleaning, above and beyond cleaning, that's what's typical, then you'll get the full refund of that deposit back. Obviously, we'll hold on to that if you cause damage or anything to our facility, and we'll retain that portion of it. If that answers your question.
Yeah, yes. I think it could be clarified a little bit more about the return. And I think Commissioner Schweddy said that as well. Like that you get the return of the booking deposit back, because that also wasn't clear to me when I read through the policy. And that does make sense. I still do think that if there's any way to break out like a cleaning, you might not always necessarily charge the cleaning fee. Is that right?
Usually we don't. I mean, most of our renters are continual users, and so as long as they don't cause any, like I said, above and beyond. We're not talking like we go clean the bathrooms and stuff afterwards. That's general use, but it's like if they trash a room, then we'll probably retain that deposit because that's above and beyond normal use.
Okay, yeah.
But that's not a very common occurrence.
Okay, yeah. No, I think that makes sense. And I think what could clear that up is just a clarification that the booking deposit does go back to the person after the event. And then I too thought that 90 days sounded quite a lot for the category of, general and event facility rentals. And if it's feasible, I understand keeping things simple, that's always better. But if it's feasible to maybe have a 90-day category for a certain level of event that you expect, you could say a big event, if that's, maybe more than 100 participants. I think elsewhere in the policy that's articulated, but maybe having maybe a middle category there for a 45-day window or a 60-day window might be a little bit more clear, I think, or it would make sense, I think, with cancellation and not receiving a refund on the booking deposit. So I'll just second that thought. That seemed like it was a little bit steep.
Can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
Perhaps Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director, for 3.8.2, maybe we call it special event and facility rentals. So it's really a larger, just so people are understanding, it's typically like you're renting Mills Park, you're renting 90
Yeah.
days is really needed. That most of your due diligence should have been done,
Yeah.
and then to comment back on the booking deposit, I completely get where you're going from. It's also what holds your date.
Yeah.
That booking deposit it puts the date on hold. You're on the books we've got it, like Dan said, is most of those big events, they're a year in advance. And that's as far as we allow people to book out as 1 year. Otherwise, we'd have people that would book for 5 years and then no one else would get an opportunity to get in the schedule. So if that helps clarify at least the purpose of the deposit.
Yeah.
But would that be better? Special event and facility rentals?
I like that.
And
I
take
think-
out word general?
Yeah, I think that does clarify it a little better. Okay. Going back to section 3.2, it's just a clarification. There's a sentence added that says modifications to pass-through fees. For example, American Red Cross may be approved by the director and added to the fee schedule. What are through fees?
Pass-through fees are, for example, so the example that's in there is American Red Cross will charge us for books and supplies for a lifeguarding class, let's say, and say it's $100, and they set that rate for what we're purchasing those fees for, and then we pass those fees on to the participant in the lifeguard class. So if American Red Cross charges us $100 for books, we're going to charge the participant $100. We're not making a profit off of that. We're just passing that fee through. But we might purchase 10 sets of books for the 10 kids in the lifeguard class, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think if it's feasible to include a short definition of that, that might be helpful.
Of what pass-through fees are?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I saw on page 6, 3.6, that when fees are increased or anticipated to increase, the department will engage in public outreach prior to the increase. And I'm curious if that is planned for this fee increase and is in the budget. It mentions this shall be included as part of the city's budget process when practical.
So this is the first step of that public outreach. Obviously, this has been published. We've had the Nevada Appeal picked it up as well and talked about that. We've had opportunities for public comment. And then what our intent is to incorporate this as part of the city's budget process, so the Board of Supervisors would consider the changes to the policy and the fees as part of that. And those are all public meetings, including that. And then we can add social media outreach and things like that as part of that effort. But I think including it as part of the budget process, we get so much press on that and so much public outreach as part of that. It's the best time of year to really consider it. When you do it outside of the budget process, it may be not as robust, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think it's the most transparent way to go about it.
Yeah, no, I think that makes sense. And I'm glad to see that this is in there. And I was just curious about the outreach process for this time, I guess. Okay, sorry, I have so many questions. I just had a comment on number 3.7, and it's more of just if the department wasn't aware, but right now there is an open grant period. The 3.7 is about pursuing new sources of revenue, but there is a open grant period right now for the Conserve Nevada grants. Those were the old Q1 fundings that got reauthorized, and so you might be aware of it, but I hope you apply. And then I also picked up on the periodic market analysis that other commissioners have referenced, and 3.6 also referenced on 4.1, and it was just curious. So how do our fees compare, and especially with these new fee increases, how would they compare to Reno or Douglas County or some of the other areas?
That's a great question. If you don't mind if we table that a little bit, so when we get into the fees proper, then we can kind of give you some comparisons. We are definitely below, I would say, the majority of the fees in different areas. And Dan can highlight that for you as he's going to do his presentation on the fee schedule. And then if we need to, we did kind of do a little bit of a market analysis of Northern Nevada and some surrounding areas. And we have a handout if we need it to be able to look at those comparisons.
Okay,
great.
Thank you. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
In reading through, a lot of this is naturally written in a way where if the public were to make a deal with the city to rent a facility, but what happens, say, if I rent a field and something were to happen to the infrastructure of the field, what protections do I have as your customer to not be charged the 10% or whatever? Like, say a flooded pipe breaks and it's flooded and not safe. I'm not sure if that's addressed.
Sure. So Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. For example, if you rent a field at Centennial Park, let's say, and you get a permit for that, and that's like a contract between the user and the city. And it has language in there what your time slot is, what you're allowed to do. You put a deposit down to rent that facility. And then if you have, let's say, participants that trash dugouts or do something, then we are able to keep that deposit. And let's say it was something even more destructive, we could contact the sheriff's office and take additional like civil action maybe. If it's something that naturally occurred and like a pipe broke and it ruined someone's event, we'd probably give them their money back because the event was, we try to be good participants with that. So I think if they're definitely protected, there's hold harmless language in that permit that they sign and they agree to. But if something where we ended up ruining their event, we typically would give a full refund back for their event if something occurred.
So it's in the permit, not
It's in the
our
permit.
agreement.
It talks about weather. I mean, it's rain or shine. Obviously, sometimes things happen and we'll reschedule it for people. We try to accommodate users as much as possible, but in that permit and that contract that you get is really that kind of detailed language,
Okay,
if that helps.
totally.
I'm not sure if I answered your question, but.
No, it makes sense. There's like two documents. We're just seeing this agreement, initial agreement. And then I was just curious, jumping back to the cancellation, it mentions that the rifle range is its own entity. Do we have any other specific use? Like, you can't rent the rifle range to go play baseball or whatever, but is there anything else like that? Or is it just the rifle range that's on its own special?
Yeah, the rifle and pistol range has some very specific policies for that facility because it's very high risk. And we also have a really high attendance rate there too, so we have to kind of manage that. And we had a range task force that helped kind of develop some of our policies. And the board or the city manager, depending on the policy, has approved those. So those are already sort of in place, and we use those as guidance and refer to those. I apologize, I didn't include it in your packet. I was trying to save you on your reading, but it's already been approved. But yeah, it is sort of separate because it's a unique use.
It's like the only major unique use facility that we would offer.
I think that, and then the theater is very specific.
Okay.
I mean, we do have like the archery range, but we have a use agreement with Clear Creek Bowen, and they manage the facility on our behalf. So we don't really get into the intricacies of that. They take care of that for us.
Cool. That's all I had. Did you guys have anything down there? So now we jump to fees, I guess, the fun part.
If you say so.
Yeah.
All right, Dan Arp, Recreation Superintendent. For the record, my apologies. We tried to make the font as big as we possibly could, but it's hard to fit a lot of numbers onto a page. So I can, when we actually jump into this, I can try and make it bigger on the screen at least, so you don't have to strain your eyes trying to look at the paper that we provided. But before we jump into the fees, just kind of talk about kind of our goals and what our purpose was and a little history on our fees. So as far as our fees go, on here, you'll see that it says 2023 fees and our proposed 2026 fees. And I just want to, many of you weren't on the commission in 2023 when we probably did our last fee adjustment. That was really minor. I think in 2023, we just tweaked a couple little things or added a couple fees that came up that we didn't have on our sheet beforehand. As far as a major change where we've raised the drop-in rates for the MAC or the aquatic facility or major changes like we're proposing today, that was in 2020. So in January 2020. So it's been about 6 years since we've had a significant fee change. And obviously our goal is anytime we want to try and keep our fees as low as we possibly can for the public, but also as dictated in the fee policy, we have cost recovery goals for different programs and facilities. And each program facility has kind of a different cost recovery goal, but we're trying to do our best to hit those cost recovery goals. So when we're proposing a change in fees, it's because we're not hitting those cost recovery goals. And we're needed to increase. As you all know, things have definitely changed in the economy in the past 6 years Our costs of operations have gone up significantly. Even just paying our hourly staff has gone up, probably almost a couple dollars an hour in that time frame. So our costs have definitely gone up. And so our cost recovery is not hitting the mark in most of those areas. So we're proposing these fee changes in hopes that that will be able to get us where we need to be. As Jen mentioned, we did a cost comparison with other agencies in the area, and we do have some of those stats with us. Generally speaking, we are lower or comparable in a lot of areas. I wouldn't say that we're above in any area almost that we've seen. And what we've heard too is that we're trying to catch up to what some other agencies are doing, but they're also currently looking at changing their fees as well. So what we looked at is what their current fees are, but they're often they're going to be raising fees likely as well in the next year or so. So we're always kind of a little bit, I think, behind in that regard. But and we don't want to do anything major. In some areas, we probably could raise our fees more if we were trying to just really focus on the cost recovery side of things, but we don't want to make it too big of a jump in one go for the public. So we're trying to be mindful of that as well. So I think what we'll do is you guys have the packet in front of you, and I have it up on the board as well. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. And when I make it bigger, we can't see the whole page at once. So if there's something further down on the page you need to scroll to, please let me know. I can scroll down, but trying to make it so hopefully everybody can see. And I'm not planning on going over every individual fee because that would take a long time. But kind of tell you what the general goal or major changes were on that particular page or area. And if you have any questions on that, then we'll go over those. And if not, then we'll just move on to the next page if that works for everybody. So we start with the aquatic facility. So basically we're proposing is raising our drop-in rate by $1. And for those of you who were on the commission, when we made that dollar change in 2020, I know that Commissioner Meyer was here. I can't remember who else was here in 2020, but we were provided with some guidance back then as far as if we come up with a drop-in fee, whatever that is, so $4 or $5, we came up with an equation of how that impacts how many uses for the 1 month membership and a discount for that 1 month membership. And for a 3 month membership, you get a higher percentage discount and so forth. So basically all we're doing is proposing a dollar change, and then it has a trickle effect to all of our punch passes and membership fees based off of the equation that was developed 6 years ago, if that makes sense.
We actually did it in, I think, 93. Yeah, way back then.
Well, yes,
Before Armstrong
we've always
came
had
in.
an equation. We came up with
96, actually 96.
a different equation. I think that was approved in 2020. It wasn't following the same, but we came up with a different one that was approved. But basically, it's 25% discount if you buy a 10 punch pass. If you do a 1 month pass, you get a 35% discount. 45%, I think, if it's a 3 month, and then it's like 65%. And what I mean discount, meaning if you were to use that 15 times a month, and then so 180 times a year, that would be your base rate, kind of your expectation, and then it'd be like $65 or 65% off of that usage.
So does that mean that the 1 month, 3 month, and annual membership is not offered to non-Carson City residents?
That's correct. That is something that was decided at that time as well, and put in the policy that that's a perk for Carson City residents, rather than getting into trying to determine every time someone comes into the MAC or the pool to make a purchase, whether they live in Carson City or not, for drop-in fees and everything like that. We've made those higher percentage discounted memberships only available to Carson City residents.
Doesn't ActiveNet suss that out? I mean, they won't, if you're in ActiveNet as a person and you have this address and phone number and all, won't it say you can't sell this to them?
It can, if we set it up in ActiveNet that way.
I thought we had set it up a long time ago. But I didn't know, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with ActiveNet, it's all based off of when they created their account. So we still have to verify, because sometimes their accounts are 12 years old.
Yeah.
And that may not be a current address.
10-4.
Can we speak to the prices right now, or do you want us to wait? What would work best?
I think, yeah, if there's something on this page that you want to talk about, I think we just do it by page if that's how it
Okay.
works for you.
Well, in this case, just for the youth, because they're youth, I was just wondering if the increase could just be a tiny bit lower. So like instead of 38, have it 35, instead of 49, have it 45, instead of 124, have it 120, and the annual membership 300, just a little more price break on the increase, just because we're talking about youth, and just to try to keep it a little more affordable, in light of also needing that, cost recovery.
So just speaking to kind of what we just mentioned before, I mean, we can, if that's what the commission desires to do, we just have to change that equation, because that was the guidance that we got, was to try and come up with an equation. So the only thing that we really are doing is changing the youth drop-in fee from $4 to $5, and then everything else is based off of that. So if we want youth to have a higher percentage discount than adults as they get memberships, then we just have to change what that equation is. But that's really all we're doing. I didn't even really do any real math on the membership side of things, other than what our drop-in fee is, and I followed our policy and how that would trickle down. Does that make sense? I will say, though, that is something that is not uncommon. So when we did our fee analysis, would say that we are cheaper on our drop-in fees than a lot of areas, and even on our adult fees. At some other agencies, what we did see is that where we are coming in a little bit more is that their youth fees are, they have higher discounts for their youth than what we are currently offering. So I think that's open for discussion, but that's the reason why we have it as it is just following that equation that was approved in 2020, perhaps before that. And so,
Really quick, I do have a question. Okay.
It works really well, because then the next time that they do this, if we were just rounding up or down, all of the work that we did post that would be a mess. We did a fee survey, we'll just say a long time ago, because those fees were all over the board for senior citizens and youth and all this kind of stuff. And we sat down with Conforti Armstrong. They came and did a lot of fee stuff for the whole city. And I was the one from the recreation department that represented the recreation department. And we just came up with a simple thing. What is the drop-in fee, and what do we want to see a discount for a 10-punch card? Okay, that's 25%. Drop-in fees $1, 10 punches.
Okay.
$10
that makes
minus
sense.
25%. And that's what Dan's saying right now, is those numbers. We just came up with a simple recipe, function box, rubric, whatever you want to say, that when you plugged in that drop-in fee, your 10-punch fee came out.
Okay.
Your 25-punch fee came out. So it was when you start adjusting those pass fees, that doesn't make sense anymore. So to make it easier, you could say, hey, could we make it $3.50 for a kid to come in instead of $3? Everything else would just play out exactly the same. If you wanted the youth fees to be lower, that would be my suggestion. It'd be easier, because as you go down, every one of those equations is exactly the same. The only thing that you're changing is the drop-in fee itself. Am I right in saying that, Dan?
yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
I appreciate the why. Thank you.
So right now, it looks like the youth and the seniors average increase was 25%, adults and was 20% increase average on all of the increases, in family was 21. So on, of what Supervisor Schutte said, if you're going with the increase, I would ask that the youth and the senior go with an average of a 20 or 21% increase rather than a 25% increase, which is what all of those averaging out to be for the youth and the seniors.
Yeah, so to speak to that, so the goal was to try and have simple pricing at the facilities of full dollar amounts. So the only way we could do that is by doing a partial, a 50-cent increase, which we're trying to keep things simple, easier for, change and things like that. So The reason why it was a 25% increase is because they were already a lower dollar amount. So if they raised $1, it's 25%. Well, $1 from 5 to 6 is 20%. Does that make sense? So we're not trying to increase youth more necessarily, but sticking with whole dollar amounts. It's just kind of how the math works, that when they were already at a lower dollar amount, a dollar increase has a higher percentage, but it's still $1.
So instead of kind of looking at it from an individual rate perspective, kind of in the kind of totality of this, you know, the metrics of all of these fee increases, how have you kind of projected any numbers to see kind of as a whole how these fee increases would help you in your cost recovery kind of metrics to see? Because right now you obviously are seeing shortfalls in areas, I would imagine, right, which is driving this. So you know, from that perspective, you know, if all these fee increases just across the board were approved, kind of where do you look from an overall budgeting standpoint first? So I mean, I guess there's an understanding of, yeah, we're, you know, there's some padding there to absorb another 5 years down the road, 10 years, whatever, you know, or yes, there's enough wiggle room to now drill down and say, okay, you know, maybe some youth programs can step down a little bit. But to me, it's kind of hard to make those decisions without kind of knowing the big picture, the overall picture.
Yeah, and I do not have like a projection out, unfortunately. And that is definitely something we can try and develop. It's difficult. I mean, it would be a very rough estimate based off of trying to predict future use. And when fees change, you know, usage changes as well. And then for a lot of the times, as far as our cost recovery, we have a pretty wide range. So you might see like the aquatic facility is anywhere from 10 to 49% is the cost recovery goal. So we're not necessarily out of the cost recovery goal, but we're on the lower end of that. You know, it's hovering right around 30%. We would like to reduce the general fund burden. And so any fee increase we can do, because we weren't comfortable trying to raise it more than $1, it probably won't get us to 49% cost recovery by raising it $1. But it helps improve things a little bit and get it so it's less of a burden on the general fund from the city.
You speaking to that makes me a question arise. Are we still looking at a 50% cost recovery with the makeup from question 18 operating to the aquatic facility? So when we opened the facility, what we did was that we promised the Board of Supervisors that we would make a 50% cost recovery at the aquatic facility, which is pretty unheard of when you're talking about aquatic facilities. And how we did that was simply taking all of the fees that we took at the door for swimming lessons, drop-in fees, rentals, etc., and coming up with, say that the fees over there are $1 million to run the place, we have to come up with $500,000. If we came up with $250,000 at the door, the general fund would, the question 18 operating would push in that extra $250, so the board would realize that it was at 50% cost covering. That's what, Steve Carson and I came up with that a long time ago, but is that still how you're looking at that? Because it sounded like you were, or is question 18 operating getting thrown into the mix so we're still becoming 50% cost covering at the aquatic facility? If we need clarification on that, let me know. So
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. So we're still doing that. We take a portion of the question 18 maintenance category, which is 20% of the Quality of Life Fund, and that goes directly toward the operation of the MAC and the pool. So since the MAC was built, it's a little bit less because now we have to share with the pool, so that has gone down a little bit, but we do factor that in. But that is still happening. The thing is, we only make so much with question 18. So we only make just under $900,000 a year for that maintenance category, and that's before the portion goes to the Boys and Girls Club. So it's a very small amount of money that is helping, but it is helping subsidize what's going on at the pool.
So the math is still there. So what are we coming in at the pool now, would you say? Are we at 40%, 30%? As far as cost recovery with the addition of the question 18 money coming into that?
So my calculations, I was looking at cost recovery, we're just looking at our operating costs, not bringing in outside funds from the Q18, not outside funds, but Q18 funds.
Well, that's,
So just looking
that's
at.
your source that's paying.
Right, but
Yeah.
but looking at just our expenditures and our revenues that we're bringing in at the aquatic facility, we're around 31%.
Plus some from question 18. Well, don't forget that, because when you're selling this to the board of supervisors, that you can't find a swimming pool anywhere that comes up with that amount of cost recovery, with that addition of the quality of life getting kicked into the fees that they're being taken at the front. You guys are doing a great job, and I'm thank God for question 18. And that's why we put question 18 together the way we did, is so we could have those fees to operate.
Absolutely. And, Commissioner Meyer knows, the pool's the money pit, and the amount of capital reinvestment that's required to keep that going is significant. And
But
that
it's
comes
a-
primarily out of, the Quality of Life Capital Fund. But a lot of those projects, pool projects are priority projects for that fund.
And I see it as a life-saving money pit, so it is worth every penny, in my opinion.
I have a quick question. So with the month memberships or 3-month memberships or annual memberships, when the pool is closed for weeks at a time, is that reflected on the person who, like, if I was to purchase a 3-month membership, like last, month, would it be extended, or how does that work?
Yes, like the pool was closed throughout most of December, and that's what we did. When members came in and said they had a 3-month, we just went onto their date that they had on ActiveNet, our registration software, and we just extended it the period of time that the pool is closed.
Talking about like the youth fees, is there scholarship options and availability for that?
Yes, thank you for asking. We do have a scholarship available. Through the Parks Foundation, they for the last couple of years have had a scholarship available. So it's 100% subsidy, up to $200 per applicant. So it's still a growing program, and we're trying to get the word out. So the more you ask, the better that is. But it's been a great program so far. So yes, as we do raise fees, we do have that available, that if anyone who applies, there's certain financial requirements that they have to be able to meet. But assuming that they meet those requirements, then we apply that to their account. And when they go to register for, and it can apply to memberships as well, not just programs. So they can do it, when they sign up for a program, or if they just want to buy a youth, obviously only a youth punch pass or a youth membership, because it's only for a youth scholarship, then they can get that for free, or a portion of that depending on if they've used up their $200 or not. And then scrolling down, that's pretty much the main thing on this particular page, is really just that dollar drop in and how that filters down to the rest of the area. If we move on to page 2, are we good to move on to page 2? Still aquatic facility. A couple things you're going to see here, and this is the first example of it, but we do a lot on like the recreation pages, where we have like programming, and we're putting on here adjustable fees to meet 50 to 100% cost recovery. So for our programming goals of whatever that cost recovery is for that particular program, what we're finding is on programs, we're always adding and taking away programs, and it's really hard to actually list programs in the fee schedule, because like I said, we do this every 3 to 5 years potentially, and sometimes the programs that we offered 5 years ago, we're not even offering today, and we've started new programs. Some programs still continue on forever. But for example, especially in the dynamics of the economy in the past few years, we're finding that our costs are changing rapidly in our operations, and we can't keep up, and especially this process that we have to take us to the commission and then to the board, it takes us a year or two to be able to change our fees, and we're always going to be behind. So for youth sports, or for just sports in general, we try to contract officiating fees as much as we can, and those officials are always changing the rates on us, and they'll come to us and say they're going to change their rates 10%. And then we're still continue to offering that sport at the same rate that is listed in the fee schedule, and we can't recover, and so we're always at a loss by offering that sport. And so we're trying to have a more dynamic pricing. Obviously, our goal is to keep our fees as low as possible, but we need to be able to adjust that if our operation costs go up because of officiating or something like that, that we could then raise the youth fees 10% if we have to cover the cost of that officiating. So that's the goal and the purpose of that. And you'll see this in a few different areas. Basically, anywhere with our programming, we just are trying to take off most of our programs off of the fee schedule, so that they're not, they're a little bit more dynamic, except for on what we would consider more essential programs, such as the youth before and after school programs, things that are services to the community that are essential, like daycare, as opposed to a lot of these other programs that are extracurricular. So we definitely have, obviously, our drop-in fees, and we have our youth program fees, our rental fees, those things we want to keep in here. So there's a lot of changes that our pool managers suggesting to the rental fees to the aquatic facility, primarily to be more in line with the MAC and similar fees, because we established MAC fees, and the pool is significantly cheaper in rental fees, although the pool is actually more expensive to operate than the MAC because it requires lifeguards and a lot more staff than the MAC does from day to day. So we're trying to reflect that on our rental fees. And so our pool manager wanted this to reflect a lot of the ways of how he's operating with the different renters and swim meets and things that he has. And then also just, adding some things like party packages and stuff like that as well. So any questions?
The only question I had on that is does that include the staff? I mean, because you could rent that pool for a full day for 10 hours, and they could have an event that would drive more lifeguards than you might need at a regular open swim. So is that just the facility that you're renting, or is that the facility and also the staff? Because I'd never seen this before. This is new, am I correct? As far as
It's a new structure.
New structure.
You can
yeah.
still see what we had before.
Yeah,
Most
no.
of where we crossed out, where, for example, indoor pool rental was $192 per hour. And now we're not doing an hourly rental anymore, but doing more kind of longer hours or full facilities.
So I guess
or
my
lanes.
question would be, is if Reno comes down and does the gamble at the end of October, and they have that gamble there for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and they're going to put a lot of people in there, and you're going to have lots of toilet paper going down the door, all of those things that happen, and you're going to have those lifeguards there and staff there to keep track of everything. Is that reflected in this $2,200 to rent that facility for 10 hours each one of those days? And then are they going to only pay $6,600 to do that?
Correct. That's a facility fee, and all the fees are in there. If it's an endorsed event, then some of those fees get charged out to
Okay.
the CTA
Well,
staff. But
I just see it kind of being put in a box in some circumstances because there might be a need for more staff and more supply services and supply type things that are coming out of the budget than the $2,200. But he's seen the numbers a lot more fresher than mine. So I just wanted to say that you could do a lot at a swimming pool for 10 hours for $220. That could be you might not be making any money, I guess is what I'm saying.
And for the most part, I mean, as he analyzed this, he felt like this would be an increase in what we were currently charging for the hourly rates. But I mean, I guess we'll have to analyze and see as we have events.
I can't speak to the numbers because they're not in front of me, those numbers. But when I saw this and I saw how this was put together, I thought to myself, what the gamble looks like for 3 days in October, and at $6,600, I'm thinking, how's that going to play with all the toilet paper that we're using and all the staff that's there morning, noon, and night? So I was just throwing that out there. So
I have a question on the party package. That's $200 for how many hours is that?
So we didn't put an hour, it's basically just for the period that open swim is, which is typically like a 4-hour period. We were looking at other facilities that have party packages and they might do it, like you get a 2-hour party. But the reality is that we aren't going to go in and have lifeguards clean that room and try and get another rental in. So it's really, they're going to prep the room before public swim and then they're going to clean it up after public swim. So as long as they're in and out in that time period, it doesn't really make a difference to us. So it's usually, you can have that room up to that, that 4-hour period that public swim is in operation. All right, moving on to the MAC. Same discussion here as with the pool. Our MAC and pool drop-in fees have always been the same, so we're just keeping that the same, and no other changes in MAC fees. They're not changing the rental fees or anything, so it's just the drop-in fees to be in line with the aquatic facility. Other than you'll see this across the board that we just are changing to be more consistent with our fee policy, the language of a booking deposit. Community center, just some minimal increases and just changes in the breakdown of which rooms. Our manager at the wanted to have a different fee for the Comstock room and the Tahoe room that had that special flooring for like fitness programs. So we just kind of broke up and then added a few dollars for rentals there. And then he wanted to add after school, because we do get rentals from like St. Teresa's that comes and use the gym for like PE classes or after school activities. And we didn't really have like a good fee for them. We wanted that not to be very expensive on a school day when it's not being used that much. So we came up with that $50 an hour, but not any major changes there. And then no changes really to the community center. Oh, did you have a?
I do. The after hours fee between 11 to 8 a.m., that is like a 92% increase. Is it rented out after hours a lot?
Let's see. Oh,
Right there.
So it's not common after hours, but there are a few events that might go late. And oftentimes I think that is just not reflecting the cost for our staff, the $13 an hour that we had previously, especially when you're getting to that long of a day. Sometimes we might be getting into some overtime hours. And so that's why you'll see a significant change there. It's not super common to use those after hour fees, but we weren't recouping our costs when we did hit those hours.
Is SafeGrad? It's a nonprofit?
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. SafeGrad is not under the joint use agreement.
So then that's a 92% increase?
I think they have something different though. I think it might be a co-sponsorship because it's through a nonprofit.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right,
I
thank
don't
you.
think.
I'll have to look
I
at
don't
SafeGrad
think this
specifically.
affects, but we can look at that and get back to you.
Okay. Thank you, because that is a huge increase.
So on the community center, just rental equipment, this is equipment for the theater. Nothing's changed other than we just took off some equipment that we no longer have in operation or added a couple pieces at the bottom that are new equipment that we now have. Recreation programs, so kind of that same idea. When we have, once again, fees that change regularly, like a jersey might change if, we go to purchase jerseys for the youth. If their rate goes up, we want to be able to respond to that. So we're just doing what the cost is plus the 10% of for admin. And then we're same thing here with, we talked about in aquatics, just youth and adult sports. We want to be able to have that dynamic fee to be able to adjust to the cost. We're just shooting for 100% cost recovery on those. But we want to make sure that we can hit that 100% cost recovery. And then our before and after school programs, we are seeing some increases there. Prior to COVID, we were seeing 100% cost recovery in those programs and higher, but we have not been able to see those numbers since. with our operations have gone up. And so we're running about 80% cost recovery in our before and after school programs. So we're looking at raising those fees there to try and get closer to that 100% cost recovery.
In those areas, is that somewhere where you see currently any sort of other payment opportunities like scholarships, or does that apply to these offerings as well?
Yeah, we have, so the before and after school program actually runs on a different program than the scholarship that we mentioned before, because it runs through Children's Cabinet. I was pulling a blank there for a second. So Children's is eligible for Children's Cabinet. So families who qualify for the Children's Cabinet can get those subsidies to cover the cost of the youth programs.
Do you know roughly how many kids in that are kind of utilizing that program?
I do not have numbers for this year.
So just because it is very detailed right here where it says Parent-Teacher Conference Week, if the new calendar is approved, that the Carson City School District is going to be voting on, it's not going to be a week. It would just be 2 days. So it would be a Tuesday, Wednesday. So would you be able to put that as a combine that as a Carson City School District non-school day / parent conference days versus a parent-teacher conference week?
Yeah,
Right now you're looking at 4 days, historically. But if the calendar passes, it would be 2 full days.
Yeah, we could make that adjustment and just change it to be appropriately based off of if it's 2 days and what that cost would be.
Yeah. So it would be the $28 per day, correct?
Sorry, what was that?
Would it be the $28 per day as the non-school days? That's a single day registration?
So we probably would develop so if that 4 days, it probably actually could be, because that's like $25 a day we're charging for those. You said it was 4 days for the parent-teacher conference.
Right now it is
currently.
half days, yeah, but it would go to 2 full days. So it would be similar to the Carson.
Right, so I actually think it would
City
be,
non-school
we'd make
days.
it cheaper than that $28 a day, is what I'm saying. If you're doing $100 for 4 days right now, then we just make it $50 for the 2 days.
Got it.
Does that make, so it would be like $25 a day. Just stay consistent with these fees. Same thing with the Camp Carson summer program. And then, yeah, outdoor activities and arts and culture, just those dynamic fees for just programs, because those are constantly changing. Any questions on this page? Sports fields, a little different format on this page, just because we had so many changes, so we just kind of rewrote it. But primarily to address the start of the conversations, we're adding the synthetic fields out at Centennial, so we needed to adjust our fees for that to be appropriate. And then as we were looking at those fees, then we realized we probably need to do lots of changes to our fees. So we have a complete new schedule here. But primarily what we're doing is we have what's similar to Golden Eagle as well, is just a baseball or softball field, like a grass field. We have a fee for that, a fee if you prep it. And then we have separate fees for the synthetic fields, which we left somewhat generic right now in case there's ever more synthetic fields, but obviously we're addressing Upper Centennial at this time. And then flat turf fields are, your soccer fields, which you require a little bit additional prep. So they have a different fee schedule there because painting a soccer field takes more time at the beginning. And if there's any questions on that, I'd be happy to try and answer, or we have Dave here as well that could probably speak more to those.
I have a couple of questions on this page.
Okay.
So it looks like you went from kind of a daily rate to an hourly rate on some of the fields. And I think I heard earlier in conversation about kind of somewhat enforcement of that. Is that kind of park ranger type territory that, okay, a user's been out there for more than their allotted time?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously we'll have the permit, and they'll arrange what hours they're planning on using it, if they exceed those hours. Um, a lot of the times we do have staff, especially at Centennial. I don't know if you can speak if you have how you would enforce that out at the other fields, but if a ranger happens to see it, and then at Centennial, we definitely have staff out there the whole time.
Well, yeah, for the record, that's Dave Navarro, Parks Operations, like Superintendent. Yeah, I mean, anytime there's a activity that's after hours or we don't have staff there, like, do we have the park rangers like available? Absolutely, and you know, they do monitor that stuff from time to time. But having said that, you know, we got 8,000 plus acres that they're also trying like to manage as well. So, but when we, you know, went to that hourly fee, you know, like most events are usually like an hour, usually like 2 hours, maybe 3 hours, depending on like the type of activity. Like, you know, very rarely, you know, are we seeing like those go beyond that. So that's why, one of the reasons why we changed it like to hourly. It's probably going to be like on the honor system, like Jen mentioned earlier, you know, they're going to get like a permit and all the information is going to be there on the permit currently now. The rangers get like a monthly like report of everything that's happening through not only the parks, but our facilities as well. And it's like what would you say, John, like a book, you know? So if anything does come up out of the ordinary, if they do need to check on anybody, yes, like the rangers could do that.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring that up is I know, like in the past, like at Governor's, you know, maybe a group out of Tahoe or something is using it during the season because their fields are covered in snow and it's running up against like Little League time type things. So there has been times where kind of two user groups are kind of coming to that point where, you know, one's, you know, use is coming to an end, you know, their rental, and then the other group's coming in type thing. So I was just curious on that. And then on the tournament lights, so $30 an hour, I was just kind of thinking from a perspective of if I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, I want to do a tournament, you know, but maybe I'm not using all the fields. Maybe I am. How does that $30 apply? If, you know, maybe I'm only using half the fields of Governors, I need the lights versus now I know I'm using all of the fields of Governors, and, you know, I'm using all the lights.
Well, I can speak to Centennial on this one, but so at Centennial, generally speaking, whether you're using 2 fields or 4 fields, we're going to turn on all the lights because it's dark and it lights up all the pathways and everywhere else to be able to see without those lights. So if it's dark out, the lights are all turning on. So that's going to be you know, the cost of running an event in the evening time. I don't know if it's any different at the other facilities.
I'd say like the same, because if let's say you only have 2 fields at like Governors, there's a lot of times where, let's say they're on fields like 6 and 5, like they always want field like 2 on because it's closest like to the parking lot and people walking in from the parking lot. So yeah, it's just going to be like we are proposing just a flat fee because it just gives them the option, gives us the option, like if they need to turn on a field, then that's going to be like within that fee.
If I can jump in on the light costs, I can tell you after seeing our utility bills, this is a very generous fee that we're charged. Like, it's very kind. I'll just leave it at that.
So why,
It's expensive.
if that's an indirect cost to the budget, why are we being kind?
Well, we are it depends by the facility. So like,
But if it's a rental and
you want to.
they're coming and they possibly have something from the Visitors Bureau that's helping them out, and we're losing money keeping those lights on, and we're lighting all the fields to do that.
Well, if
I think we should not necessarily be kind, but be honest and be, hey, this is what it costs us to turn those lights on for an hour, and this is what your cost is.
we could just write cost, honestly, if we needed to do that.
I don't know what that is, but I know that the math is there, so you could suss that out pretty easily, so.
I think staff researched it to make sure that it was equitable with it, but obviously our utility fees go up all the time. for our youth facilities where we have the youth sports budget, it's subsidized by, the room tax. So we have a little bit of leeway where we're not charging as much for like governors or.
Well, not to
we live
mention the
everywhere.
load on all of those things.
Yeah.
Because you have that in the budget this year is to replace some of those things. And there's a load that you got, that's a direct cost and it doesn't include a load, so.
Yeah.
And Dan Art, for the record, one thing that we can't speak to you, this is probably one of those examples of why we're trying to keep things as cheap as possible. We're also trying to recover costs as much as possible, but we're also trying to compare our fees to other agencies in the area. So it's a dynamic that you're kind of always trying to play in balance with. But when we looked at other fields in the area that are lighting, that $30 is more expensive than what others are charging. Perhaps that's because they're LEDs and we're not. So we are more expensive to operate our lights, but it makes it hard to charge too much more because we don't want to have them charging $15, $18 an hour and we're charging $40.
But we're better. Fields are better, staff is better, food is better.
Because that was definitely something we had to take into consideration all around when we were looking at the synthetic fields. At Centennial was looking at obviously the closest comparison being Golden Eagle and what their fees were. And if we were significantly different than their fees in some degree, we're not trying to compete with Sparks, but at the same time, tournament directors are choosing where they want to go. So we need to make sure that we're comparable. So sometimes our fees are based off of that more than what our costs are, because if we price ourselves out, then we won't get any tournaments.
Well, I think that's a great example of the comparison, just being mindful that because we don't want to price ourselves out, but we also want to recoup what we can.
Also, we need to be careful when we say price ourselves out and looking at that study type thing, because there are so many people that are paying more taxes because those fields are in their backyards, paying more because they live in this area, paying more into a direct line item into the Douglas Swim Center down there. And so all of those things and all of those communities are completely and totally structured, and their tax base is structured differently. So comparing us to Douglas Swimming Pool it's hard to do because we're general fund supported and fees at the door supported. We're not supported on our property taxes every year. So those types of things are also, so I'm just saying be careful when we're comparing. I know we can't go down and drill down into why all those tax structures and stuff like that, but ones we know about, be careful comparing us to. And that's it.
All right. No changes at the cemetery other than we just added a baby plot, which is a no cost, which is just something that just wasn't on the fee schedule before. Rifle range, rifle and pistol range, some significant changes here. So primarily, you'll see that we changed based off of some feedback that we got at the last commission meeting. Instead of charging in-state or out-of-state for the rifle range, we're changing that to Carson City residents and non-residents. And then an increase there as well. So from $5, a drop into $7. And then our membership fees have changed there for the annual fees as well. And then a couple changes to the group reservations. Any questions on the rifle range?
That part about the state fees.
Oh, yes.
What we kind of chatted beforehand.
Thank you for bringing that up. I made a note on this one here for an error on your packets that we need to make sure we address so that it's on the record. So I should have these lines numbered so that we can actually see what we're talking about. But you'll see on the screen on these two that have updated since your packet, we just missed changing on your packet. It still has the in-state or out-of-state, and then I updated that to say resident, non-resident. So it's the same as everywhere else, and that's how it was meant to be. We just missed that when we were updating this.
Quick question. On the annual passes for the rifle, why did we choose to increase the Carson City resident by $10, but not the non-Carson City resident by all the Carson City resident stayed the same, but we increased the Carson City resident.
John Costello for the record. So what we did across the board with all of our fees was a 20% increase. And we were the only facility that did in-state, out-of-state. Obviously, we're changing that to Carson City residents versus non-Carson City residents. So the non-Carson City residents are already changing from $50 to $100. So we didn't feel like it was necessary there to do that 20% increase.
I'm not seeing 50.
So the non-Carson City residents is what we used to charge for the out-of-state. And I went over all of our annual passes. That's kind of where the zip codes came in earlier. So if you see on the packet, where's the $100? Under annual passes up top, so the second item. So that's staying at $100 because that's what the out-of-state charge was $100. That line item now is going to be non-Carson City residents. That's going to be $100 because the non-Carson City resident used to pay $50. Correct.
To give you some context too, that's, we have a little over 300 people, I'm rounding numbers, John probably has the specific ones, but do you want to give the numbers of the Carson City residents and then the people that will be non? So it'll be a significant amount of people that will have that increase being non-Carson City residents.
John Costello for the record. So we went over all of the annual passes on ActiveNet, and they were obviously split up between like out-of-state residents, in-state residents, and then the rest of our passes. So senior in-state annual, senior out-of-state annual. So we had a total of 672 passes. Of those 672 total passes, 344 were truly Carson City residents. So that 89701, 89703, and 89706. And a lot of those passes that were getting that $50 were 89704 and 89705. 89704 is Washoe, 05 is Indian Hills. The non-Carson City residents came out to 322. So it was pretty close to 50-50. And then we were only selling 6 out-of-state passes. So a lot of those residents were coming from Incline or South Lake Tahoe. And for 2025, there was only 6 of those passes.
Well, that's going to be a great revenue boom. Can stay the course.
Moving on to Parks and Open Space on page 10. Nothing too significant on these pages other than, as we mentioned, just kind of changing that cleaning security to booking deposit. We added a fee because sometimes we get these requests throughout the year and we didn't anticipate that request and we don't have a fee for it. So for example, someone just needed to rent some small space to run a class, a commercial class in a park. So we established just if you want to rent, like to teach a yoga class, for example, it's $20 an hour for a grass space, but we need to come up with a fee for that. So now we've now incorporated that into here. And then open space needed to add for during projects for equipment storage. Once again, a need came up and we needed to have a fee for that. So sometimes things come up that we did not anticipate, that we just don't have fees established for. I don't see anything else really on here on that page. Yep.
So just to reiterate, the park grounds, Fuji and Mills, 110 a day. Then park grounds booking deposit, 150 a day. So initially, so they put the 150, and then after the event is completed, will they be getting 40 back, or is it a $260 rental?
So there's the rental fee, which is the $110 a day.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the booking deposit. So additional $150 to book that reservation. And then after the event, if they have the event and there's no cleaning or damage issues,
They
and they
get
get that
that back.
150 deposit back.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on parks, open space fees? And then the last one is our outdoor equipment rental. No changes here. The things that are in red are just equipment that we've acquired in the past few years that we've added fees for, but we're not changing any of the fees to the current equipment. And I believe that's the last page.
Dan, can you just briefly go back to page 10 where you had some pickleball and tennis court rental fees?
Yes, where is that?
Oh, they zoom by really fast.
Bottom? Oh, because it's not red. I was looking for red. So those fees are really just designed for commercial use primarily at this time. We needed to have a fee. We were getting requests for groups or instructors that wanted to come and teach private lessons or classes or have bigger events on the tennis. Primarily it's been on the pickleball courts because up until recently, we didn't have great tennis courts to do it, but this would apply to tennis as well. So we need to have a fee for that so that they could rent that space from us. This doesn't apply to individual private community members who just want to go play. It's all still drop-in at those facilities at this time. So yeah, this fee is really just to reflect commercial use. Does that answer that question for you?
Yes, thank you.
Is there a limit on how many courts? So let's say somebody was wanting to give private lessons, or there were several instructors wanting to give private lessons and take several courts. Is there a limit?
We don't really have established, I mean, there is a limit in the sense that we will always make sure that there are some courses available to the public as much as possible. Sometimes there is a large pickleball tournament or a camp that they did a couple years ago, and they did rent out the whole facility, but that was like a one-off day. But generally, we really try to be mindful of if somebody was to do consistent use, we would make sure that there was always going to be a certain number of pickleball or tennis courts available to the public. They can't generally take the whole facility.
Perfect.
Except for on a rare exception.
Right. Thank you.
Any other questions, concerns?
I just want to say thank you for doing this. This is a huge undertaking. I hope it all goes well for you. And when do you think this will go to the board?
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. That's the $1 million question. It will be as part of the budget process. So I
Oh,
would,
it will.
yeah, it will be incorporated somehow into that. Typically, the tentative budget is approved in April. Final budget, May and June. So somewhere in there, this will probably be part of a board packet. It may be with other items as part of the budget process. But I can keep you updated and let you know.
Well, I just hope that 350 angry pass holders at the rifle range don't show up. So hopefully.
It's
we
still,
can
it's still
stay-
the best deal in Northern Nevada.
Well, I don't disagree, and I think it's the right step in the right direction, and I'm glad you guys were bold enough to take that step. So hopefully we can push it over the line. Thank you.
A follow-up question to that. So then the fees would go into effect, or the fee increases would go into effect at the next fiscal year?
Okay. Dan Arp for the record. So we don't have the implementation date listed on here as we have in times past, just because we don't know when it's going to go to the board. But typically, we try to give ample time for the public. So once approved by the board, usually we'll give them, I think 60 days is what's outlined in the fee policy to try and give notice before we raise the fees. They probably won't be an all-at-once implementation, depending on the type of program. Some things could probably be implemented right away, especially obviously if it's a new fee that doesn't exist, like the outdoor rental equipment, board approves it, implement it, because it's not changing a fee. But some of our fees, especially like our youth programs, we're going to try and implement that at a time that makes sense. So depending on when it goes to the board, we'll make sure there's ample time to notify the public. And then in between a session is really when that would be implemented. So it might be if we have enough time between school year and summer, like the first week of June, might be when we implement that. If there's not enough time, depending on when it goes to the board, it might be after summer and before school year. So we'll look at kind of the individual areas and see where it makes sense. But like for the aquatic facility in MAC, we would do the same thing. We try and not change fees in the middle of a summer, but try and do it when we're kind of transitioning from one schedule to another.
Also, it worked with your publications. I mean, that's the way you used to do it. We'd have the summer publication, and that summer publication would have the schedules through the next amount of time, and then usually fiscal year changed within the middle of the summer, and then when all of our fall programs started is when we implemented those. But that's just some history.
My last comment, but I do appreciate the time that you put into this, and I do understand cost recovery. However, in keeping things consistent, you wouldn't have to go down to the 50 cents if you kept the youth and the senior consistent at a 20% increase as you did with the adult and the families. So what that would be then is for the youth and the seniors for a 10 punch pass, and this would be for the Aquatic Center and the MAC, it'd be $36 rather than $38. For a 1 month membership would be $47 rather than $49. A 3-month membership would be $119 rather than $124, and then an annual membership would be $305 rather than $315. That would be consistent with keeping everything at an average of 20% for all youth, adults, seniors, and family. And I would hope that you would consider doing that, which would then be less of a burden for our youth and our seniors.
The only thing I'd have to say to that is that it's been my experience that those youth don't buy those passes. There are some of those passes that are purchased. Mostly the adults and seniors buy those because they're on a more frequent schedule. And if you really wanted to do something to help the youth, it would be at the drop-in level. Honestly, it would be at the drop-in level. When they ask mom, give me some money because I'm going to go to the pool with Susie on Friday, that's the kind of drop-in use that has.
This is for the fee schedule is for the Aquatic Center, and it mirrors the MAC as well.
Yeah,
So
and
I
I'm
don't know
just
what the
saying
MAC
that
is.
when the youth are traveling in our community, that's usually what they're doing is just going one time. And if you wanted to, the drop-in fee would be the one to
lower.
to zero in on, because that's where it would be affected at the youth level or not. Because it was been my experience that the youth are more transient, and they're going to spend $4 as a drop-in, not spend money on a pass or a punch card.
So keep the youth at $4 and not increase it to $5?
No, my point is if you wanted to help out the youth, tell them not to raise it at all and keep it at $3.
But I think
It's right now at
actually
4, I
it was
think.
partly being consistent, keeping everything at 20%. I think that's where this was coming from.
But it's still, like Dan explained earlier, is that because it was a smaller fee and you're raising it by $1 because he didn't want the quarters involved in it, that percentage was up a little bit more because it was a percentage of a smaller number, not a percentage of a higher number. And I'm saying if you wanted to help the youth out, that we should probably look at not raising the youth fees at the swimming pool, period. And then everything else would stay the same. Am I saying that right, Dan? I don't want to be not helping you.
No, that's, Dan, for the record, that is correct. So the current fee is $4. So I think sort of some of the confusion is, and the proposal is to go up to $5. So what Commissioner Meyer is suggesting is if we keep the youth at $4, then it wouldn't change anything, right? And that's definitely an option. I guess the follow-up question would be, we've kept the youth and seniors the same price. A lot of facilities have youth being the cheapest, seniors being the second cheapest, and adults being the most expensive. So, I mean, we could definitely see what if we're going to keep youth at $4, if that's what you decide to do at this time, do you want to keep the seniors at $4, or do we keep seniors at the proposed $5 and we just have a different tier for youth and for
No,
seniors?
I would like to keep the seniors down as well. As we all know, Social Security is not keeping up with our economy. And so our seniors are struggling. Yeah, I see it every day.
If you want a comparison for other agencies, and I won't inundate you with paperwork, so I'll just give you a quick synopsis. So for aquatics, Carson Valley charges youth and seniors the same drop-in rate. Washoe, the same, youth and seniors the same. For City of Reno, the youth is $1 difference. It's $1 more for seniors than youth. And for City of Sparks, it's $2 more for seniors than youth.
Youth also have the scholarship options available too that kind of make it better for them and families.
And Deanna, for the record, that's true as long as they qualify on those financial requirements for the scholarships. So obviously that won't be able to impact all youth. That would just be the ones who hit that income requirement.
I like the idea of keeping the youth and the seniors at the $4, keeping those prices consistent with, or keeping them where they're at, and then the others doing the increase. I think that is a nice way to address the concerns.
Deanna, for the record, so we can definitely do that. It obviously would make it so that our cost recovery doesn't increase as much as initially anticipated, especially as Commissioner Meyer said, you know, youth probably don't make up a huge portion of our revenues at either facility, but seniors do, especially, well, at both facilities. We get a lot of senior use at the MAC and at the pool. So that would have, you know, not as much of an impact on our cost recovery.
Are the seniors' usage mostly then punch passes, drop-ins, memberships? What?
All of the above. So we do a lot. I think our largest, the punch passes are what we sell the most of. And so, but we do get a handful of people who will purchase the month passes or the annual passes if they know they're going to swim laps most every day or they can play pickleball most every day. They find the value in those memberships, but most people are purchasing the 10 punch pass.
I do have a really hard time because many of our seniors have a fixed retirement, they have a fixed Social Security, and it is not keeping up with our economy. And like I said, I see it every day. So I really, really have a hard time making such a huge increase. Like I said, the average is at 25%. Rather than the 20 that is with the adults and the families. So if it moves forward, my vote would be no.
Do you have a solution? So as far as not raising it all or going to 350 or?
Well, in a perfect world, we wouldn't, but I
Well,
understand.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with anything you're saying.
Right.
I'm just trying to make sense of it all.
Right. I think it's too steep of an increase, at 25%, for both the youth and the seniors. I think it's too steep. But I do understand the cost recovery, so an increase, yes, sure. But if you can make it a 15, a 20, keep maybe the drop-ins the same at $4, just find a happy medium is what I'm asking. But you know your budget better than I do.
And Dan, for the record, and just this is for your reference, I know that Jen had mentioned the difference in price between youth and seniors at the different facilities, but as far as youth drop-in rates, we're proposing $5. Carson Valley is currently at $4. Washoe, they're at $5. Reno's at $7, and Sparks is at $5. So that's the youth drop-in rate at the other facilities in the area, just for comparisons.
Last time the fees increased, did we notice a decrease in sales or daily users?
DNR for the record. So hard to say because we were looking back at when implemented. We were finalizing our fees at the end of 2019 and implemented in like January 2020, and then we closed the facility for like the rest of the year. So I would say since things have returned back to normal, we haven't seen a decrease, but hard to do a comparison directly when the fees got implemented because everything changed.
So I have a solution. We can, if we like everything else on the policy and also on the fee structures and fee increases that Dan came up with, we as a commission can say, hey, we like this, but let's keep the youth and the seniors down at $4 and see what happens. And gosh, if we don't make those cost recoveries in a couple years, then we're going to have to say, hey, they might need a bump of $2 instead of the $1. But I'm willing to go that direction because it fixes the way Dan has all of the beautiful numbers set up for the percentages on all of the different passes and so forth. And I feel strongly that the youth that are coming to the facilities are more of a drop-in dynamic than they are a pass holder dynamic.
Then
But
what
we could
about-
solve all of that by just saying, hey, as a commission, I'd like the idea of keeping youth at 4 and seniors at 4.
And then what about the 10 punch pass that is
And
very
then-
popular?
It would then stay all the same
At the
because of
20% then.
20.
0.
Well, but I think there could be a hybrid there. I mean, we could keep the 4 for the
35.
drop-in, and then the 20% putting that consistent with the other price increases, which would take it then at 36, 47, 119, and 305.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that's not the way he set up the math to derive all those numbers. The basis, the cornerstone for all of these passes and the way he set these passes up, the cornerstone for that is the drop-in fee.
Then I would say then keep the 10 punch pass
Do
the same.
I'm speaking for you, Dan, so I want to make sure
I
that
mean,
I'm
is this-
speaking correctly.
Is it a
happy to let you
cornerstone
speak
that
for me.
there's some flexibility, or?
We would like to try and keep an equation, right? Because it
Uh-huh.
does make it easy to explain of how we're doing it. When we sell pass, we can easily say this pass
Sure.
gets you 25% discount, or if you buy the month pass, it's a 35% discount. We can try and play around with figuring out what a percentage would be, but we already have that established. So I think my recommendation would be if you want to keep the drop-in fee at $4, then we just keep all the memberships at the same percentage that we've been doing.
Okay.
Would you consider doing if the 10 punch pass is popular with the youth and the seniors as well, lowering, instead of going from 30 to 38, possibly, maybe go to 34 or something? I just think you're outpricing them.
Well, I think the recommendation that is being proposed right now is if you keep seniors and youth at $4, then you would ignore those proposed changes and they would remain at the 2023 approved fees. So where am I? A 1 month membership or a punch pass for youth would still be $30 instead of $38. We'd keep it the same, and we'd only be the only fees that would change would be the column that has the adult fees, and that those proposed would go into effect, but everything else would remain the current fees that were approved in 2023.
Excuse me? I'm good with not raising any fees. But I don't, I know that's not the world I
Right.
live in.
So do we have a potential motion to?
So is the motion here going to be the policy and the fees all in one motion? Is that what you're looking for, Jennifer?
That would be great. The fee schedule, the fees are really an exhibit to the policy, so.
Okay.
I've made notes with everything. I know Dan's made notes as well. So I think you could just,
Well, most of the things we came up with were minor, under the policy were minor corrections and minor line items.
absolutely.
With the fees, the only thing that we've really talked about is this youth and senior at the swimming pool. We haven't made any other recommendations except cleaning up that. Well, it would be, we'd be Mac, yes, I'm sorry. Thank you. I got a pool brain, so.
I think you could just say in your motion that, as discussed with the changes presented. by the
But should I highlight this youth and senior staying?
No, I got it.
Okay.
We have public comment?
I bet you I know what Denny's gonna say.
Thank you, Chair, and congratulations, sir. Commissioner Walt and Lisa Schutte are right on my line. I'm a senior. My monies are very tight. Everything is going up. Country's talking about making sure your kids get away from their computers, their screens, for psychological and emotional issues. And we're thinking about raising fees. We should try to figure out a way not to have them pay any fees and invite them to have transportation here to boot. We can't do that, but I'm really pleased you're considering not raising the senior or the children's at this point, and that we need to be a lot more flexible. And I don't like nice big things like big beautiful bills and stuff like that, because it's not relating to the reality that's on the ground, the people. It's making numbers work a little smoother, makes it look a little neater, but it's not. Life right now is very difficult. And the more we can do to encourage activities, whether they're playing cards at the senior center and communicating, or they're putting their feet in the pool, I want to have that. And I really, really appreciate the fact that you've had these discussions tonight. And I would like not to necessarily be so happy about being nice to people about lights. You can look at that meter and say, you used up this much electricity, here you go. But in the other parts of life, it's not that easy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Denny. Thank you. So do we have a motion to move forward as discussed, keeping the youth and the senior rates as they were in 2023 and increasing the adults? Do we have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second, if I could throw something in. And it doesn't have to do with the motion, but possibly that matrix that you use for those passes, a long time ago, we had that in our policies, the fee policies. It was written right on there. This many days, this 25% off, all of that stuff, and it was all taken from so maybe put that in your fee policy. And if you have that in your fee policy, every year you raise the fee for the drop-in, it's just a function box, the spreadsheet that can come right across with the fee that's supposed to be there if we accepted that in the policies also. So with that, I'm ready.
And then adding to the motion, do you want to also add to adopt the changes that we discussed to the policy as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So I guess all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. So now we move to item 5E. Possible action, discussion, and possible action regarding the recommendation to the Board of Supervisors on the fiscal year 26-27 departmental budget request and funding priorities for the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Department. Take it away, Jen.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm going to try to just give you the highlights considering the lateness of the hour. I appreciate everybody's hard work. So we're really just in the midst of starting our budget process. But to give you some context of where we're at and the priorities and feedback I could really use from all of you today, all of our capital improvement project requests are due on Friday to finance. So if we could focus on CIPs, that would be the primary focus of what the feedback is I could use from all of you. I will talk briefly about what we're considering for supplemental requests. Those would be requests that we need are going to ask for adding to our operating budget. So services and supplies, staffing needs, things like that. Those are supplemental requests. But in your budget or in your packet, I'd like you to look at Exhibit A. That's this really bright colored packet right here. And just to give you a synopsis of last year's budget, our FY26 budget that we're in right now, we had significant success in the budget, and it's really diverse. We have a lot of different funds. We're funded through the general fund. We have the 254 number, that's a portion of quality of life. So that's 1/4 of 1 cent sales tax that's dedicated to parks, trails, and open space. That maintenance categories that represents the 20% function, and then 40% is the capital, and then the other 40% of that fund is open space. We also have an enterprise fund for the cemetery that is required by law to cover costs 100% or more. So that's not something we can subsidize legally. We have to make sure that we're covering costs, and we're doing very well with that. Since we changed our fee structure a few years ago, we've been very successful with that, which is great. We're in the black. We also get redevelopment funding, which is there's 2 redevelopment districts. One's downtown and then one is south of town. And only Mills Park and Fuji Park are eligible for redevelopment funding, to just give you some context. But we received over $7 million in funding. That's higher than we normally get in a typical fiscal year. I just want to caveat that. The big ticket item in there was the water rights for open space. So we have been saving for decades to be able to purchase water rights for Buzzy's Ranch. We've made 2 big purchases for Buzzy's Ranch. We still will have 2 more purchases for that. Of the 2 future purchases, $1.8 million will be covered through grants, and then probably another approximately about $110,000, $120,000 from the open space fund, and then we'll be complete with that. So that's been the largest thing there. And then on the far right column is a status update for all those projects, so you can see where we're at with everything. Is there any questions on the 26 budget and then the projects that we have in progress right now?
Can you explain why the city would be paying for Eagle Valley Golf Course cart path and
Sure.
not Duncan Golf?
I'd be happy to.
Thank
So the city has an agreement with Duncan Golf Management. The agreement requires, we can't charge rent for that use because of how we acquired the land. It's prohibited. So in lieu of rent, we require Duncan Golf to take 10% of their net operating income and do improvements to the course. As a part of that agreement, we're required to match what they invest in the course. So we have worked with them, and they are focusing on bunkers and a lot of the things that the community had said that they were unhappy with. And then we were focusing on cart paths as our match. So next year, we're anticipating $50,000 as our match requirement from that contract. The facilities department also maintains like the clubhouse, for example. So we do some building maintenance. They do the day-to-day maintenance, but we take care of like the HVAC system, the roof, the main functions and structures of that building. But that's through our contractual obligation.
Just another question. When do you bring it to the Parks and Rec Commission for new projects?
For
When do we-
capital projects?
Yeah.
Well, tonight we'll talk about the budget and the priorities for the upcoming fiscal year.
Okay, thanks.
But any questions on the existing budget? Okay. So then if we could turn to your Exhibit E. So that's the one with the blue pages. These are just tentative, and this is what staff is recommending our priorities for the upcoming fiscal year budget based on feedback we've received from the public, aging infrastructure, and the limited funding that we have available. We have to prioritize what we have and what our needs are. So if you don't mind, I'd like to just go fund by fund, and then if you have questions on those, I think that might be the easiest way to go about it, if you're okay with that. So we'll start on the first one, which is quality of life capital. The first couple items, so the Park and Rec Master Plan is in desperate need of updating. That's our department master plan. The last update was in 2006. It's very outdated. A lot of it is really not relevant anymore, and it's something that needs to be updated. So what I'd like to do is put a portion of the quality of life capital budget toward updating that plan. We would hire a third-party consultant, and then I'm going to request the other half of that to come from the general fund, just like the city's master plan was updated this last year. Also sort of with that is the Title 13. That's the Carson City Municipal Code section that this department operates under. It's very outdated. It is extremely old. It's not a good tool for the park rangers, especially the open space category is not a good tool for us to be good stewards of the land and be able to make proper enforcement on that land. So what we'd like to do is we'll have a committee of staff, and then if there's one or maybe two of you that would like to help our effort in drafting kind of an update to the code, and then this might be hiring some third-party legal counsel to help us because the DA's office is so backlogged with their work to be able to get that across the finish line. So that's what's envisioned there. And then outfield fencing. So this is portable fencing for tournaments, so we can adjust our user groups for those tournaments. And this is at the upper fields. And then Centennial Park lights, we have these. It's just the lights at Centennial are atrocious and real bad light pollution. We'd love to upgrade those with LED. It's very costly. So what we're looking at is an initial investment. We would update the tennis court lights and pay that off in full, and then make a down payment on a lease to be able to purchase those upgraded lights. So it'd probably be over a several year period. It would be, I think, a little over $200,000 a year for the next 4 years, which is in your 5-year plan. And then some upgraded appliances at Fuji Park in the kitchen, because we've already done some upgrades in there and we need new appliances.
Would that be for a total of 800,000 or 800,000?
It would be 800,000 for
200?
this year. This would be this year, so that would pay for the lights outright for tennis and the labor,
lease.
and then an initial payment for the upper field lights, and then we would have additional payments.
And then a
So I have a
question.
question. Oops, go ahead.
Would you save on utility costs then?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And like in terms of kind of return on investment there, like what are you thinking?
I don't know, we could probably get some information from the vendor on what that return on investment might be. I don't want to give you
Yep.
a number that might be inaccurate, but we would definitely have a cost savings for power.
Okay.
And I think the impact to the city would be so much better. Our light pollution would reduce significantly.
So quick question on the Centennial lights for the upper, will they be just for when softball is scheduled, or would they be able to accommodate the soccer as well?
Well, for the upper fields, it'd be for any use that would happen up there. We could have a cornhole tournament or a kickball tournament or
Okay.
whatever. But these would also increase our abilities to be able to turn them on and off and program them as well, because it's
Yeah.
what we
So-
have up there is pretty ancient.
So one thing that I want to bring attention to, and it probably won't be, obviously for this evening, but so for youth softball, we have lights. For youth baseball, we have lights. For youth soccer, we don't. So when it comes fall, they're the time in which they can have practice, is very limited because it gets so dark. And I don't know, I know trying to light Edmonds or Pete Livermore would be extremely expensive, but if there's just even a few fields that you might be able to, a parent shared a picture during fall soccer saying, hey, look at our kids, playing in the dark, and then look at the kids over here with softball playing in lights. And so if there's ever something, I would like to be able to put that on.
One thing we might do is, so this larger document that I was skipping over that Dave worked so hard on is our long-term capital improvement plan. I think what we might be able to do is add a line item in there just so it's at least on our radar. If we ever had a grant opportunity or something that came up, obviously adding lights, especially new lights, it's cheaper for us to obviously retrofit what we have like at Centennial, but it's millions of dollars of investment. So it's significant. Oh, Dave.
Yeah, this is Dave Navarro, Parks Operations Superintendent, for the record. Yes, we do not have any lights on our, like soccer fields. And that's the one, yes, we do have it on baseball and we do have it on, like softball. One thing that we think about, and I just want to, just put it out there so everybody can think about it, is that obviously when you put lights on a facility, it makes it available more longer, natural surface field. That means it gets more wear and tear. So the maintenance will have to increase and, with that as well. So it could have an additional impact on some other things. So I just wanted to put that out there. So when we start planning and thinking about that in the future, it's going to have like an impact. And then with the field, like a flat field like that, obviously main use would be soccer, but we also have like football as well. And then if we ever add any more like lacrosse and other activities like that, I mean, it's just like the wear is much different than on a baseball and softball field. So just wanted to put that out there. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, no, you're fine.
I had something. So on quality of life, the Capitol, on 30 years ago this November, we passed quality of life. So that's pretty awesome. And all the things that we're talking about here are directly related to the community coming together 30 years ago and saying yes. And one of the things that's on that bond, that's on that question is gateways into our city. It's right there, almost on the top. And in 30 years, I don't know that we've spent a lot of money on that. I brought this up at the Parks Commission level on several occasions. And I really think, especially the North Gateway in Carson City, it's horrendous. And I don't know what it will take for us to say, hey, let's spend the money the way the people voted for the money in 1996. But that was specifically on there. And we specifically did that because we wanted to attract so many of the people in Carson City that had fingers in softball and baseball and the aquatic facility and all of those things. We wanted to get everybody to the poll to pass that question. And we haven't touched that yet. And I think that it looks the same as it did 10 years ago. So I'm just on my horse here for a sec, Jen. And I'm just saying, in the quality of life capital, at some point, I'd like us to see us spending a little money on that, directing, because I don't want to get off course for why we voted for question 18 and for some of the things we promised to the citizens when we did pass that and start collecting that tax.
So, and thank you for that. Previously, this board recommended to allocate $20,000 toward the design of the Northern Gateway Corridor project. That money has been allocated. Public Works has obtained all the other funding, and they're going to be leading that effort. So that's for the design. I think once the design is done, we'll have a plan that might need construction or, obviously a funding plan. And I think that would be the best time to do that. Otherwise, I don't want to step on Public Works' toes because they're going to lead the effort to re-envision that entire corridor. And I agree, it needs a lot of help. It's not the best first impression when you come into town.
I'm not saying that should be in this budget. I'm just letting everybody
It is
know out there
absolutely in
that needs to be in our world. And we as a commission need to know that budget question. I mean, it'd be great if you could dig that up and email to us, it'd be great. Also, maybe in a newspaper article on how well people responded to that. So we all know up here what question 18 did for us 30 years ago.
Absolutely.
And it's continuing to do for us. It's going to go on forever and ever and ever. It's wonderful. So that's the only reason I brought it up.
Absolutely.
We'll get everybody to bed. I'll stop talking.
No, I appreciate that, and you are not wrong. So don't think that we don't want to implement that vision or keep that going. But there's definitely a need to do that. So anything else about Quality of Life Capital?
Just one real quick thing. So the 50,000 and 50,000 for the master plan update, that's also to retain a consultant to assist with that process?
Yes, absolutely. Those are preliminary numbers. I need to get some hard quotes, but if we are successful with the board approving the budget with that in it, I'll do a request for proposals. We'll hire a consultant, through a competitive process. But those are just kind of placeholders right now. Then quality of life maintenance. So this is also from that quality of life sales tax. These are the priorities that staff's provided. ADA stairs at the pool, outdoor pool safety cover, stage deck parts. We generously had some donations from WNC for stage decks. We want to get an inspection on the outdoor pool, see if there's repairs that need to be made or if that structure needs to be re-envisioned and completely replaced. So that's what that $5,000 would do, would hire a consultant for that, for an engineering inspection. Dump trailers and equipment, field, just equipment for maintenance, and those were the priorities from the maintenance staff. Any questions on quality of life maintenance? Quality of life open space advisory committee will really dive into this, but continuing that water rights purchase that I mentioned, helping contribute to code updates for open space. They need a dump trailer. We often share costs between parks and open space, so we can be creative with our budgets, but they do share equipment. And then a new attachment for their mini excavator. Then moving on to residential construction tax, and unfortunately I have some bad news. We had anticipated this being a good guesstimate for the budget, but it'll probably be about $320,000 that we're gonna have available for next year. So we won't be able to do all of these items. So what we're gonna recommend is to do design for the playground at Governor's Field, which would be about $50,000. And then we could still pursue the other items on the list. So residential construction tax, for those of you that are new, I think we talked about it briefly on our tour, but it's mandated through NRS. It's what is paid when you build a new home, a new dwelling unit, or a new mobile home, and up to $1,000 per dwelling unit goes into a fund for neighborhood park improvements. They can only be new improvements. They can't be used for maintenance. It's very restrictive. And then the park has to be under 25 acres or less in size. Governor's Field just qualifies. It's like 24.89 or something acres. So that is a qualifying area. But a lot of our neighborhood parks, need some active reinvestment, but they can only be for new items. So if we put in a new playground that replaced an old one, that would qualify as a project, to give you an example.
At Governor's Field, I think was part of question 18, because that was the first physical thing that we did, was make those T-ball fields.
Yeah, it's the oldest playground in
Yeah,
our
and that was in
inventory.
30 years ago, we put the T-ball fields in as question 18, and so that could qualify for question 18. Just saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It could definitely
In the
qualify,
rubrics,
but then
in the rubrics of what's question
Yep.
18, the T-ball fields and that play structure are question 18.
Yeah, absolutely. Another thing we can do too is sometimes playgrounds often qualify for grants. We've gotten Land and Water Conservation Fund grants, or maybe we could utilize some of this money to use as match for a future grant project. So we always look for that.
So what is the amount instead of the 500,000?
Right now, it's going to be about 320,000.
320,
I won't
sorry.
know exactly. After augmentations, this Thursday at the Board of Supervisors, that amount is going to be about 525,000, but we owe Anderson Ranch, we need to reimburse them for their residential construction tax credits, so that's why that number is going to be lower. Okay, moving on to the cemetery fund. We don't have anything right now that we're going to recommend as far as larger capital projects. This year, we have a lot of those roadways are going to be reconstructed. Public Works is also going to be improving and slurry sealing the parking lot over at the cemetery at Lone Mountain Cemetery. So we have a lot of existing projects in this fiscal year. I will say in the next budget that we talk about in a year, we're probably going to have some cemetery projects ready for you to consider. Schultz Ranch Landscape Maintenance District, so that is a fee assessed to all those folks that live in Schultz Ranch Park or Schultz Ranch subdivision, and we don't have any capital improvements. We've done a lot this year. We've redone a lot of the sidewalks and done a lot of improvements through that fund, but nothing capital related that we're recommending for next year. We'll keep going with our standard maintenance practices out there. General fund, major capital improvements. So a major item is anything over $5,000. A minor item is under $5,000, just so you know the terms that finance deals with. As we talked about earlier, contractual obligations to match Duncan Golf, and we're estimating $50,000 to be that match. I'll confirm with them what their projections are for next year, so that number might adjust a little bit. The other half of that park master plan update that we talked about. And then cemetery road improvements, so this would be from the general fund, not from the capital fund or the cemetery enterprise fund, because we wouldn't have enough money to fund this project out of the cemetery enterprise fund. Actually, I don't know if we're actually going to consider that. Do you remember, Dave, for next fiscal year? We might not be recommending any road improvements. I think we're going to be doing substantial this year, and we might not need that. I'll have to get back to you on that one.
Can it ever be partial, like to share the cost?
Oh, absolutely. So that's what we did this year. We shared the cost between the cemetery enterprise fund and then a general fund contribution. I think we need to see how the bids come in is really why, and we need to see how far we get with the roads based on the bids that we get. So that's why it's an unknown. I may have an update for you at our April meeting and where we're at with that. And then just some additional urban forestry reinvestment, improving the right-of-ways where we're upgrading irrigation systems, planting trees, specifically on Kuntz, Carson Street, and actually I think part of West College Parkway as well. Is that right, Dave? Yeah, so that's not listed. Any questions on the general fund CIP priorities?
I just have a question on the urban forestry. So that's the responsibility of Parks and Recreation and not Public Works?
Well, that's a great question. Parks and Rec take care of a portion of those, and Public Works takes care of some. But we have over 50 areas that we maintain.
Yeah.
It's even more than that, I think.
This is Dave Navarro, Parks Operations Superintendent. For the record, yeah, I don't have an exact like amount, but yes, Jen is correct. Like we do share some of the right-of-way landscape maintenance with Public Works. And the number is pretty high, but I don't know like the exact amount of areas, so.
Okay, then moving on to the redevelopment fund. So that's what I talked about earlier. There's an assessment that the business owners pay into. Mills and Fuji Park qualify. We've already designed some ADA improvements at the theater and the community center on that end of the building. So we have the design complete. We'd like to do the construction of that. So it's right now approximately $800,000. It might be a little bit more. We'll work with our park project manager to refine that number, but that would be the only redevelopment request we have because it's such a large amount. And then just minor general fund requests. We don't anticipate any right now. We might have a couple small ones that the staff bring forward, but I won't know until probably the end of this week when I get all those from staff. So I think the feedback we need is, are these the priorities that you see on the horizon for the department? I know it is a huge budget packet and it's overwhelming. Is there anything you feel that is missing from what you've heard from the public?
First off, this was on page 11 of everything that's denoted here. This is item B. This is B.
Exhibit
It says
B.
Exhibit B. The ADA stair replacement under outdoor pool is $50,000 for this year and not $15,000. So I was wondering which one of those numbers was correct. and maybe you could save some money in your bottom line?
It's 15,000.
15, so,
Yeah.
all right.
The 50,000's error.
And then I know that it might be minuscule, it might be a small number and all, but how's the gun range fund going? And how is that spent? Is that a revolving fund or is that a spend in the year fund? And are we able to buy? Because I did see on the gun range that we did have some requests, some shade structures and things like that for $40,000. Is that, because when we set those fees up, those fees were set up so they would reoccur back into that facility. How are we spending that money?
John Costello for the record. So obviously with the rifle and pistol range, our cost recovery is anywhere between 10 and 49%. We've been above or right around that top number the last 2 years. And then ultimately, to answer your question, with the CIPs that we put in specifically for that facility, we've already received approval on that, and we just have the match for the NDOW grant, which is something that hasn't ultimately been available to us the last couple of years. So that's that's ultimately what we're waiting on for those items that we've put in for in the past.
Okay, my specific question is how much have we generated into that fund that goes back into that? And are we spending it, what level are we spending? Are we spending it on the staff out there? Are we spending it on targets out there? Or what are we spending it on?
So because it is a cost recovery budget, we've been the last 2 years, like 2025, we were at 47%. 2024, we were at a little over 50%. So like our revenue for those 2 years, 2025 was 89,000 and 2024 was 84,000. Like this year, our operating budget is 202,000 and we're on track to be at that 50% number. So the revenue that we're making doesn't necessarily go back into the facility. That's that cost recovery, because our cost for seasonal staff has gone up. You know, when we first had these conversations 6-7 years ago and established the fees, I think our only full-time staff there was our range coordinator. We now have a range coordinator and 5 1,039-hour positions out at that facility, in addition to volunteers that assist with range safety officer duties. So hopefully that answers your question, because ultimately we wouldn't have any money going back into the facility per se unless we were over 100% cost recovery.
Okay, so I guess it's my mistake that I'm understanding that fund differently than fees at the swimming pool or fees at the MAC. Is that right, Jen?
Well, the revenue from the rifle and pistol range goes back into that budget, and it supports the staff directly. It supports the operation of the facility directly, rather than going into the general fund
So it's
pot.
a bit of semantics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but for capital improvements, John's correct. So in a previous fiscal year, I think 2 fiscal years ago, we set aside quality of life capital funding to be able to use that as a potential match for NDOW grant, which is the majority of the funding that has improved that range.
Okay, I understand that
Yeah.
fund now, and I understand how it's spent. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It is different than our other funds, so it's a good clarification. But we would need to be over 100% to be able to have funding for maybe capital improvements. But it's directly supporting the staff, the target stands, all the service and supplies that are benefiting the public at that facility. So you know when you go and you pay your $5 drop-in or whatever, that money is going directly back to the range.
I have a quick question. I know last year we talked, and I might be wrong on this, but the basketball lifts, we had a long conversation about the lifts. And is that already being funded? And I'm not remembering, or is that something, is that something that we aren't pursuing?
No, we
fixing
are
those
going,
lifts?
the basketball at the MAC, yes. So we're going to ask for that as a supplemental, but we're going to request that the money comes from the Quality of Life Maintenance Fund, but to build it into the MAC's budget. So every year we have those safety inspections, and then as we need improvements with that, we can do that annually.
Perfect.
Rather than do a separate request every time.
Perfect,
Yeah.
thank you.
Any other questions? Is there anything you think that we missed the mark on?
I was made aware that the $49.99 for the disc golf course, they haven't received that, so I'm curious where that would be.
Let's see, Dave Navarro, Parks Operations Superintendent. The original minor request that was done, I think 2, maybe 3 fiscal years ago, is been dwindling down. Some of the projects that they have done out on the course and some of the materials that they have needed to do some of the projects, make some of the repairs out there, have been charged against that. So that has been dwindling down. So it wasn't physically given like to them.
Okay.
It's something that we have worked with them, and like when they have an expense for like materials, supplies, we've also paid for like some of the new signs upgrades as well, has also come out of that.
Cool. Thanks.
Does this, with some of these ADA projects that you have, does this kind of get you somewhat current on any projects that are sitting out there? I'm kind of looking in your future projections. I didn't really see anything beyond FY27, but I'm just curious if there's any other accessibility projects out there on the horizon that
I think
need to be moved a little closer to the
Yeah,
current
that's a great
fiscal
question.
year.
We have one right now going on at Pete Livermore Sports Complex that has been a major concern, and we've had to sort of save over multiple fiscal years to make that happen. That one's in construction right now, so that was a huge need that we have. We've met a lot of the issues at the theater that we were concerned about. This next redevelopment project will be a significant one. There's still a few things at the theater we'd like to do down the road. We had a ADA assessment done of that entire facility, so we have a whole plan of what we would do next. But those are the significant issues that we heard from the public and we were aware of, and just trying to implement those.
We have a public comment.
Thank you, Chair. I am very concerned about cemeteries. We are ignoring one, and we have for quite a while, and last visit, it was just heartbreaking. The Empire up out of the waste management area up there, it needs help, and it just keeps being Lone Mountain type situations, and I'm not sure how to take the smiles or the grins or whatever right now, because I'm not following things as well as I'd like. But I do also have another matter. The Empire Ranch is a historical, I think, and they haven't even clarified to me who owns it. I looked for to get some information from Public Works, Darren Schultz, and he wasn't able to get back to me. My thing is that we lost over 200 and some trees. We have more trees in dire stress. We have many, many dying. And my wish and request from him was to get better clarification on who's responsible for what. We may not be able to say each tree has a name to it, and each person that's in charge has a certain tree they are engaged to take care of, but that was a total failure of huge, just ignoring or actually neglect. And we don't have, I've been trying to find out who we have as an arborer. And we're looking at allowing anybody, just anybody, with no one taking responsibility, either from responsibility from Public Works, and I don't know, Darren may want to take responsibility for certain areas, tree loss, or Jennifer Budd should maybe get responsibility for other tree loss. But I don't consider either should get any more money allotted towards planting new trees till they figure out who's going to keep an eye on them. Who's responsible for the failure? I think it was total neglect and lack of communication. And I am not an arborist, but I was fortunate enough to work with him. My father was a main tree man in Pasadena, California for years. That's a huge responsibility. He knew every tree that he was responsible for. He wasn't the one that went out and sprayed it. He wasn't the arborist that said what it didn't need to be sprayed, but he knew those trees. And if there was trouble, he would relate that information. Public Works is full of busyness and very busy. But I saw areas that I felt that water had just been turned off, especially the area of College Parkway, where you had those beautiful blooming, weren't supposed to have plums, but they had plums. And they were allowed to die. They were trimmed in properly right up to their deaths, and then the water seemed to have been turned off. So my thing is, I don't want any more funding going to anybody till they get an arborist in, until they each decide what's theirs to keep track of and what's
Thank
the
you, Jen.
others. Thank you. I'm sorry I ran out of time. I have more to say. But thank you. That's a big thing.
So do we have a motion to recommend the budget requests and priorities to the board as presented?
Sure. I move to recommend the budget requests and priorities to the Board of Supervisors as presented.
We have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Now we move to item 6, the director's report.
Jennifer Budge, Parks and Recreation Director. Just a couple updates. You'll see out in Mills Park, we've got Carson City Lights. It's a new special event that's going to be coming to our park. It is going to be February 6th through 15th, 6 to 10 p.m. It's an immersive art experience, kind of like when you go see immersive Van Gogh, things like that. Tickets are $20. Kids under 12 are free. You can get tickets. There's links on Visit Carson City website or Brewery Arts Center. We're excited to partner with the Culture and Tourism Authority on that event. We just had our new restroom at Upper Centennial at the tennis courts installed. We still need to connect the plumbing and get a few things before it's actually open and available. It'll probably be about another month before it'll be open for the public, but it'll be a year-round restroom. We won't have to winterize it. It's a brand new, really nice restroom, so we're excited to have that. Upper Centennial Fields, it's about 50% complete. It's pretty exciting what's going on up there. We're hoping, mid-April, May at the latest in case we get, like a Miracle March snow situation. But it's going really well. So the weather's been good on our side for that project. We just, the park maintenance staff and public works staff worked together to make some pretty major improvements over at Sonoma Park. We have a whole new driveway for public works to access their well, making some improvements to the dog park, and it looks really, really nice over there. There's still some more work to be done, but if you get a chance, head over there. It's a huge improvement, and thanks to the staff for working on that. It's been a lot. I just wanted to, the ski program is full. We have 53 teens in that program. If we could afford to get another bus, we would probably have another 53 kids. So it's an amazing program, and thanks to Dan and his team for that. And then, as Kurt mentioned, so it's the 30th anniversary of the Quality of Life Fund. So we have a big year ahead. We have a planning committee. We're going to have some celebrations and some free opportunities for the public to enjoy some of the facilities that the community has made happen. So we will have some big updates probably by our next meeting of what we have coming ahead to celebrate that 30 years. It's a big deal. We're going to look at articles in the paper, and when we had 25 years, we had a celebration at Silver Saddle at the end, and we're going to have a lot of great things to celebrate that just this whole year ahead. So more to come. We're going to add Kirk to our committee. Our party committee. Yeah, that's great. But any questions for me or on the Board of Supervisors updates in your packet? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Now we move to item 7A, the update from the Carson City School Board Liaison.
Thank you. So quickly, I was appointed for another as long as if I have to run for reelection, but at least for another year for the commission. So at the first meeting of the school board, every year, we divvy up the, the commissions and the committees that all of us will be sitting on, and I will be continuing with the Parks and Rec Commission. So I'm excited about that. I also wanted to, I shared this with Jen, but I want to share it with all of you as well. Kudos and a sincere thanks to the team at the Bordewick Bray after-school program. It was brought to my attention that the parents are extremely thrilled and are with the hard work and the dedication that they provide at that after-school program. And so I wanted to make sure that we had that on the record, that their hard work and their dedication is noted, and that the parents are, and myself, are extremely grateful for their the work that they provide for the after-school program at Bordewick Bray. Sorry. As you all probably read, the calendar is a big issue. So we are proposing, district staff proposed a new calendar. That calendar was early release days every Tuesday rather than every other Wednesday. And so I appreciate Parks and Rec giving the insight on what that would do with the after-school programs as well, because it was asked. And so I appreciate your input on that. And then also the budget. We are better off than our school districts to the right and the left, but that doesn't mean that we're going to have the same challenges as well within the next couple years. So budget cuts will be made. We're looking at, cutting the budget, obviously, in the next year, but what that looks like, we're just not quite sure.
Thank you. Next is the update from the Foundation for Carson City Parks and Rec.
You have an update in your packet.
Update in our packet, great. That brings us to item number 8. The next meeting is April 7th. So is there any issues or anything you guys would like to see on the agenda for that meeting?
Just an update on Centennial, Upper Centennial.
We will also have our annual golf update from Duncan Golf at that meeting.
Awesome. Look forward to that. Item 9, closing public comment.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to have 10 hours here, but the deal is that I'm disappointed no one brought up the fact that you are looking at having to replace 200-something trees. I did a rough estimate of the cost. It was $70-something thousand dollars. And each tree is not just planting, it's figuring out the right tree, it's figuring out how deep you plant it, et cetera. I read the report. What it didn't include was the fact that some of the stressing was done because of the neglect. The lack of water, the lack of proper pruning, and the lack of proper observations. If they had called in arborists at the right time, they may have been able to treat those trees differently. That was all in the report. The thing that wasn't in the report is who was responsible and how can you correct it. I don't want people, well, I would have liked somebody to have gotten a little earful about this. If we don't have an arborist that's willing to speak up, then shame on us. If we can't afford one, then we shouldn't put in trees. Also, I'd like to suggest that I would have also liked cemetery brought up. It keeps getting ignored. They just say, who's going to take care of it? I think the last time anybody was up there was a Boy Scout or Cub Scout group that did some weeding. And, they're not falling out of the high area there, but it's in bad shape and it should be renewed. And I really appreciate it if everybody that's here tonight understand that I do not appreciate certain responses I've gotten or not getting responses when I have questions, not from you all. I do hope that one of you or two of you might say, hey, we maybe ought to figure out how to budget new trees or get an arborist. That might be on an agenda. Well, I can't do that. I need you. And then I need the mayor if it's with the city supervisors. Thank you very much. But please, I'm not just out here because I like to spend my time being aggravated by having to listen to something I can't participate in. I want you to hear. And Jennifer Budge has a lot to do. I understand that. She has a team that she is like a big bear about. But I've got to tell you, this was a mistake that cost us dearly, not only for the insects, but the environment in general. And we're acting like it's a joke, really. And it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Danny. That brings us to item number 10, which is possible action to adjourn this meeting. Motion, awesome.
Second.
Second. We're closed. Thank you.